LoveLore Library. Chapter 627. Chen was in a daze as she stood shakily at the same spot. The maids beside her, Shi and Hua Yi, quickly supported her. A layer of fear gradually rose in Chen heart. She suddenly felt that something was slowly changing, and the scariest thing was that she didn't know where the change had started. The commotion in Autumn Water Garden quickly spread to the other courtyards, such as the West Courtyard, which had been put aside for a long time. The Western Courtyard was originally so spacious that it was almost desolate. Ever since Chang Zai-Qing moved in, she often moved some flowers and plants and managed the Western Courtyard into a unique and elegant place. At this moment Chang Zai-Qing was sitting in the room and kept the letter on the table and casually placed it on the table. Zhao Mama opened the windows to prevent the room from being stuffy and said to Chang Zai-Qing, "Is it a letter sent by eldest Shenfuren?" Chang Zai-Qing nodded her head. "The letter that Luo Shuiyan sent over." Actually Chang Zai-Qing was not sure if it was Luo Shuiyan or Shen Miao. Once she thought of Shen Miao, her mind would think of that young female's clear eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything, making her involuntarily shiver. Luo Shuiyan said in the letter that Chang Zai-Qing had not gone to the Shen mansion for a long time and if she was free, she could go to the Shen mansion for a visit. Luo Shuiyan also had the heart to find a good family for Chang Zai-Qing. It was said to find a good family, but Chang Zai-Qing thought of something else from this letter. A few days ago, she switched from dealing with Shen Axayan to dealing with Shen Wan, and it was much easier to deal with Shen Wan than what Chang Zai-Qing thought. There was no other reason but that Shen Wan was a person who liked elegance and Chang Zai-Qing was to Shen Wan's liking. Ever since the incident with Shen Yu and Shen Dongling, the contradiction between Shen Wan and Chen Roqiu was getting bigger and bigger, and he was very fond of coming to the Western Courtyard. Chang Zai-Qing naturally became a beauty who could understand. Over time, Shen Wan became more and more used to running over here, and Chang Zai-Qing did not ignore the growing appreciation in Shen Wan's eyes. He had to strike while the iron was hot. Right now, was it that hot moment? Just as she was thinking, a maid outside came in to report that Shen Wan had arrived. Zhao Mama quickly retreated out. When Shen Wan entered the room, he saw Chang Zai-Qing holding a letter in her hands, reading it with relish. He asked curiously, "Whose letter is this? Why are you so engrossed?" Chang Zai-Qing seemed to have just seen Shen Wan coming in and smiled as she put down the letter in her hands. "It is a letter sent by eldest Shenfuren." The smile on Shen Wan's face froze. He pretended to ask casually, "Why did eldest sister send a letter?" Chang Zai-Qing smiled. "The eldest Furen of the Shen family is a good person and said that she wants to be a matchmaker with me. Most likely it is because she sees that I do not have anyone to rely on at such an old age, and it is also a good intention." She spoke candidly and glanced at Shen Wan before continuing, "If third master is free one day, please help me take a look. Perhaps you might even know the good family that first madam mentioned to me." She was still laughing happily, making her look even more beautiful and alluring. Shen Wan, on the other hand, was gradually unable to laugh anymore. This little matter in the Shen residence was not unique and was also being discussed in Rongjing Tang. Old Shenfuren sat on the couch and the maid behind her gently massaged her shoulders. Wang Mama said softly, "Old Furen, third master went to the Western Courtyard again." Old Shenfuren's closed eyes opened slightly and seemed to be thinking about something. After a moment, she slowly closed her eyes again and said, "So be it. Even though the status is slightly lower, it is after all a concubine and one does not care about the status." Wang Mama also smiled. "This time old Furen can be assured. Originally one wanted third master to take in concubines, but third master was not willing. Now with young lady Zai-Qing first, in the future third master will take in others, and after spreading branches and leaves, one would be able to give birth to a boy and a half." Chapter 628. Old Shinfuren sighed. If it was not that the Shin residence does not have a grandchild, why would I need to intervene in his courtyard? Originally he protected Chinrochio tightly and did not even listen to me, this mother's words, seeing how Chinrochio was so arrogant in front of me. At that time I said that one is not afraid that Chinrochio would be favored and not be able to give birth to a son. Males are all greedy for fresh things and one day she would be despised. Did I not say it correctly? Wang Mama quickly echoed old Shinfuren's words, that is. Old Furen has eaten more salt than they have eaten rice, thus naturally one can see the future and have great foresight. Old Shinfuren seemed to enjoy Wang Mama's flattery and a trace of pride appeared on her face as she said, if one knew that number 3 likes this kind of female, I would have found more Shu daughters from scholarly families. Chenrochio always think that she is invincible under the heavens and did not look at her own appearance. She thought that her maiden family had read a few more books and was so complacent that she could not even manage a family properly. Finishing, she continued, I see that Chang Zai-Ching is not bad. Well-behaved and polite and not pretentious. It is understandable that number 3 likes her. But till now one's mouth has not been broken. Wang Mama said, if this goes on, when third Furen discover the clues, one fear that there would be a ruckus. Ruckus? She dare. Old Shinfuren said angrily and then thought carefully before tiredly waving her hands, but it would be troublesome if there is a ruckus. Never mind. Since both of them are interested, after a few days you go up and help. What is done cannot be undone. I want to see if Madame Qin would still dare to stop it. If she dare, the Shin family would not be able to take on such a jealous and childless matriarch. Just send her a divorce letter. Wang Mama could only carefully agree. The matter of the Shin residence being in a mess because of the third household, finally reached the other owner of the matter, Shin Dongling's ears. Xinghua was carefully brewing tea for Shin Dongling. It was a top-quality Mount June silver needle. Even though the Wang family was not considered as rich as a country, but they were particular about food and clothing and were much better than the Shu daughters of the second household. It was obvious that Shin Dongling was also living well. If the Shin family was present, they would definitely be surprised that this leisurely and contented beauty was actually the yes-man Shu daughter of the second household. Shin Dongling picked up the tea and took a sip. Xinghua said worriedly, this servant heard that the people from the Shin residence came over again this morning and said that they want to marry second young lady over as a pinchi. If the second miss really married into the family, what would happen to miss? I'm afraid that third Furen and third master will make things difficult for Mississippi, don't worry, she won't get married. Shin Dongling smiled. It is impossible for the Wang family to let Shin Yu enter the household, and even if Shin Yu entered the household, it would not be possible for her to live well. What is the point of paying attention to a person that is destined to be guarded against? It would be better to pick a few good-looking fabrics to send over to Yinyang, and let her make a few new clothes. At this moment, Shin Dongling's every movement seemed to have the air of a mistress of the house. Xinghua thought for a moment and smiled again, young lady is naturally intelligent. It is fine if this servant does not understand. One do not know what young lady said to Gentleman Wang that now one does not like the people from the third household. But the people from the third household also reap what they sow. It was clearly third young lady who proposed the exchange of marriage, but they still want to throw all the dirty water onto young lady. It is really too vicious. Shin Yu said that everything was planned by Shin Dongling and when the exchange of marriage was spread to the Wang family, Xinghua was extremely angry. At the beginning when Shin Yu begged Shin Dongling to replace her in the marriage, she clearly said that she would not implicate Shin Dongling and turned her head to cast her aside. The skill of changing one's face was just too fast. Xinghua scoffed at it. If not, why would it be said that Xinhuan was intelligent for a lifetime but muddled for a moment? The reason why the Wang family did not like the third household was because Shen Dongling said one sentence to Wang Bai. Shen Yu was in love with Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi, and the third household also had the intention to stand at Fu Xiuyi's side. Chapter 629. Shen Wan wholeheartedly wanted Shen Yu to dispel the idea of marrying to Fu Xiuyi and pick the Wang family because in the fight for the heir apparent, the Wang family did not stand on Fu Xiuyi's side. In the end, Shen Yu admired Prince Ding and the third household of the Shen family supported Prince Ding. If Wang Bai married Shen Yu, it would inevitably cause trouble in the future. If the Wang family and the third household of the Shen family were to marry, there would inevitably be discord in the future. Thus, as long as the Wang family was not stupid, they would not let Shen Yu enter the doors. Even Shen Dongling's exchange of marriage was a blessing for the Wang family. Was it not good to be able to cut off the relationship with Prince Ding? Shen Yu and the Wang family's fate was destined to be broken. But Shen Dongling would not feel pity or sympathy because of this. What you sow, what you reap. All of this was Shen Yu's own sin, so naturally she had to swallow the bitter fruit herself. To let Shen Yu marry in the name of a Pin Fei was the Wang family deliberately making things difficult. Even if Shen Wan agreed, would Shen Yu obediently do so? Shen Dongling did not think so. Not only did Shen Dongling not think so, Shen Miao also did not think so. Jingzhi said, the Shen residence is in a big mess. This time the show really makes one feel lively. Shen Miao smiled without a care, perhaps. The bigger the mess, the more we are able to cut off the relationship with it. Jingzhi looked at Shen Miao and walked to the side to whisper to Guyu, what happened to young lady these few days? Why is one not in a good mood? Guyu was startled and looked over to Shen Miao's side. She saw Shen Miao sitting in the courtyard and her book was not flipped. Her hand was supporting her chin as she looked at the sky lazily, not knowing what she was thinking about. Seems to be a little. Guyu also nodded her head, these few days there is no spirit no matter what. More than spirit. Jingzhi shook her head, if it was in the past, young lady would be somewhat happy to see the Shen residence fall into misfortune. Now the Shen residence is in a mess but young lady only waved her hands when she heard it and seemed to have no interest. Could it be that one is sick? Able to eat and drink, able to walk and jump. What kind of illness would be like this? Guyu rolled her eyes, do you think this is lovesickness? Who is suffering from lovesickness? A voice came from behind and both of them jumped in shock. When they turned back to look, it was Luo Ling walking over. Jingzhi and Guyu quickly greeted, this servant greets Biao young master. Luo Ling waved his hands and walked over to Shen Miao in front of the stone table. When he walked over to Shen Miao's side, he saw that Shen Miao was still sitting in a daze and asked, youngest Biao sister. Shen Miao turned her head back and when she saw Luo Ling, she smiled, older brother Ling. Luo Ling sat down opposite Shen Miao. His right hand was still not recovered but Shin Qiu had found a left-handed sword technique manual for Luo Ling and these days he really started to seriously practice with his left hand. His state of mind was much more open, and the way he talked was even better than before. He seemed to be even more warm like a piece of jade. Occasionally when he walked out, there would be young ladies who shyly peeking at him. Hearing Luo Tan's joke, several young ladies of official families in the Ding capital secretly fancied Luo Ling. Luo Ling said, what is Biao youngest sister thinking about that you are so lost in thought? Shen Miao smiled gently, nothing much. Just sitting in a daze. Luo Ling thought of the lovesickness that Jingzhi and Guyu were talking about and his heart sank. He looked at Shen Miao and asked without any trace, one thought that Biao youngest sister has reached the age of marriage and thus became somewhat mischievous. Shen Miao did not seem to understand Luo Ling's words and said lightly, talking about the age of marriage, perhaps it is Biao older sister Tan who is anxious. Luo Ling smiled and said, "That is also true." Shen Miao looked at Luo Ling. "Why is older brother Ling looking for me?" Luo Ling was startled and a trace of awkwardness could not help but rise on his handsome face. He originally came over to take a look at Shen Miao, and when Shen Miao asked him about it in such a serious manner, he did not know how to answer. But he suddenly had an idea. "Oh, a few days ago Biao's youngest sister gave me some pastries and it is somewhat too sweet, so I came over to tell Biao's youngest sister about it." Chapter 630. Gu Yu, who was behind, had a somewhat resentful look. Her young lady was not a chef in the Shen residence, nor was she a pastry chef who specialized in making pastries. Luo Ling's words were to blame Shen Miao after eating Shen Miao's pastries. Jingzhe, however, was holding back her laughter. Gu Yu's wooden head could not see it, but she was quick-witted. This young Biao master obviously wanted to get close to Shen Miao but could not find any other excuse. But Jingzhe looked at her young lady who had no heart for romance and shook her head with some pity. The falling flowers yearn for love, but the heartless brook. One fear that her young lady would not be able to appreciate young Biao master's intentions. Shen Miao indeed frowned and asked, "Too sweet?" "I did not add a lot of sugar juice." Luo Ling scratched his head awkwardly and thought of something. Tanner once said that Biao's youngest sister knows how to make fruit juice-flavored pastries. "Is it possible to make that with me next time?" Shen Miao was startled. Luo Tan often came to Shen Miao's courtyard to talk to Shen Miao, and occasionally the pastries that were placed on the table would be eaten without hesitation. Shen Miao tried to make those pastries herself. After all, she had not made them in her entire life, thus it was inevitable that she was a little unfamiliar with it. But Luo Tan felt that it was very delicious and ate the whole basket of pastries. That pastries were mixed with fruit juice, which was the taste of the imperial family of the Great Liang. Previously Xie Jingxing asked Shen Miao to make 2 baskets of pastries for him to fill his stomach when he was silencing people. Afterwards Princess Ming'an was really killed by Xie Jingxing, but the 2 baskets of pastries were given to Xie Jingxing. Afterwards Xie Jingxing disappeared for a period of time, and these days Shen Miao was watching the farce in the Shen residence and at the same time making pastries, thinking of repaying the other's favor. Thinking like this, Shen Miao's eyes gradually drooped down. Speaking of which, Xie Jingxing had left for a few days, and Prince Roy of the Great Liang just casually left, and there was not much news in the Ding capital. Xie Jingxing did not know if it was safe or not. After all, he still carried the identity of the little Marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Linen, and it was very difficult. Luo Ling saw that Shen Miao was in a daze again and waved his hands in front of her, Biao's youngest sister. Shen Miao recovered to her senses and smiled apologetically at Luo Ling. "Apologies, older Biao brother. That pastry recipe was made by me carelessly, and at that time it was only by luck that I was able to make that basket, and it was all eaten by older Biao's sister. If one were to make that kind again, one do not know if one would be able to do it." Jingzhe's eyes widened behind Shen Miao. Her young lady could actually lie to Biao's young master with a straight face. Jingzhe naturally knew that Shen Miao did not know how to make those pastries. Shen Miao had memorized the recipe and even made it herself, looking like she was very skilled, so why was she not willing to make a basket for young Master Luo? Could it be that young Master Cousin had offended his young lady? Jingzhe was puzzled. Luo Ling did not expect that Shen Miao would reject and was at a loss of what to do. Shen Miao's expression was leisurely and there was no trace of guilt on her face. Since it was the pastry of the Great Liang imperial family, the process was complicated. She could make it once, but she did not have the patience to make it for others all day long. Luo Ling. It was better to let the pastry chef in the kitchen make something else for him. As they were talking at this end, they did not think that their cheerful and witty appearance would be seen by another person far away under the eaves. That person's white robes fluttered as he waved his paper fan and had the appearance of an elegant gentleman. It was Gao Yang. After Xie Jingxing left, Gao Yang followed Xie Jingxing's instructions and stayed in the Shen mansion, saying that he wanted to look at Luo Ling's injuries. Thus it was convenient to see Shen Miao's movements at all times. With one look, it was not a big deal as he could see Luo Ling and Shen Miao talking in such a lively manner. Gao Yang's gaze towards Luo Ling carried some sympathy before looking at Shen Miao and shaking his head before sighing deeply. Chapter 631. Why are you sighing? A head suddenly popped out from behind Gao Yang and almost scared Gao Yang to take a step back. That person came out from behind Gao Yang. Her eyes were lively and full of heroic spirit. If it was not Luo Tan, who else could it be? Dr. Gao. Luo Tan asked, "What are you standing here for?" She followed Gao Yang's gaze and saw Shen Miao and Luo Ling sitting and talking before looking at Gao Yang again. Gao Yang felt somewhat uneasy when he was stared at by Luo Tan's strange gaze, but he saw Luo Tan suddenly speaking, "I know. So you like youngest Biao's sister?" Gao Yang was so shocked that he quickly reached out to cover Luo Tan's mouth. What a joke. Xie Jingxing did not only send him alone in the Shen mansion, there were also other secret guards. If any blabbermouthed secret guard were to say this to Xie Jingxing, then he would not need to stay in Mingqi anymore. Gao Yang looked at Luo Tan, who was struggling in his hands, and a trace of helplessness flashed across his heart. Luo Tan was someone who specially found trouble for him and was scammed more than once. Luo Tan finally broke free from Gao Yang's hands and most likely realized that her voice was too loud, so she lowered her voice, but her expression was still proud as if she had caught hold of Gao Yang's weakness. She said, "So you like youngest Biao's sister? So you are jealous. Do not think yourself clever." Gao Yang said, "This one does not dare to have any thoughts about fifth Shen young lady." Luo Tan's lips twitched, "At least you have self-knowledge. My youngest Biao's sister is such a smart and good-looking young lady, and it is hard to find one in the Ding capital. You are a doctor and still want to be delusional. Why not look at the mirror?" The disdain in her tone deeply pierced Gao Yang's heart and made Gao Yang have an impulse to immediately look for a mirror to see if he was as unpresentable as Luo Tan said. Thinking of His Highness, Gao Yang sneered and his chin pointed towards Luo Ling's direction. "I am delusional and he is qualified." Luo Tan looked at Luo Ling and sighed. "Older brother Ling is very good, but unfortunately he is not youngest Biao's sister's husband." These words were somewhat out of Gao Yang's expectations, as he thought that Luo Tan would wholeheartedly protect her own older Biao brother, and asked, "Oh? Why do you say that?" Biao younger sister is a person with her own ideas and brother Ling's personality is too gentle, so there is no spark between them. I think Biao younger sister only treats brother Ling as a brother. Luo Tan felt it was a pity. You still know what sparks are? Gao Yang was surprised and immediately asked, "Then tell me, who can your little cousin ignite sparks with?" Gao Yang was just casually teasing Luo Tan, but did not think that Luo Tan would really seriously ponder over it before finally saying, "Someone like Prince Rui." Gao Yang was taken aback. Prince Rui is good-looking and mysterious. He is also a person who values affection and righteousness and should be the only good man in this world. A person like my youngest Biao's sister should be worthy of such a husband. But, it's probably just a thought. Luo Tan lowered her voice and looked up to see Gao Yang smiling at her. Only then did she realize that she had said too much to Gao Yang. Her relationship with Gao Yang wasn't that good. Luo Tan instantly changed her expression and whispered to Gao Yang's ear, "Hey, the last time I went to the residence of Prince Rui, you got hold of my weakness. Today I know that you admire my youngest Biao's sister in your heart, so I got hold of your weakness. Both of us have hold of each other's weakness, so we are even. In the future you can forget about using the matter of the residence of Prince Rui to threaten me. Be careful that I will tell youngest Biao's sister about your schemes and you will not be able to lift your head up in front of her for the rest of your life. Luo Tan said fiercely. Gao Yang really did not know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, compared to Shen Miao, he was more afraid of Xie Jingxing. However, seeing how Luo Tan was acting all smart and crafty, the corners of her eyebrows and eyes were full of quick-wittedness, he suddenly became interested. He leaned closer and said, "Good. Then let us get hold of each other's weakness, how about it?" He was born to be as graceful as a jade gentleman, and when he leaned closer to speak, he was also very handsome. Luo Tan was a person who liked to look at good things, and like this, she did not know why she felt guilty. She fiercely pushed Gao Yang to one side. She was a person who practiced martial arts, and that one slap almost made Gao Yang vomit blood. Luo Tan turned and walked away as she said angrily, "Lecher." Gao Yang touched his chin and slowly smiled. These trivial matters in the Shen mansion did not attract Shen Miao's attention, and in her eyes, they were all unimportant and boring matters. Until the second day, something happened in the Shen residence, and this matter was somewhat interesting. Shen Yu escaped. Chapter 632. The Shen residence was currently in an uproar. Most likely it was because Shen Wan said that he wanted Shen Yu to marry into the Wang family as a second wife that made Shen Yu panic, and in the situation where Shen Yu could not find a way, she actually made a bold move and escaped from the Shen residence. Before leaving, she even packed up all the valuable gold and silver items in the room and carried a large load for Chen Roqiu. Naturally Shen Wan was unable to restrain his anger and roared at Chen Roqiu, "I asked you to look after her. How could she escape?" Chen Roqiu's heart naturally had lingering fear. She loved her daughter and did not completely put Shen Yu under house arrest like what Shen Wan said, but she did not think that her feelings of love for her daughter would be used by Shen Yu. Now that Shen Yu had escaped, she did not know what to do and said to Shen Wan, "One have already sent people to search." "Master, you definitely did not do it on purpose." She is afraid. Even at this time, she still did not know her mistake and was still finding excuses for Shen Yu. Shen Wan sneered, "She is afraid. She is afraid that she will exchange marriage with others. Afraid that she will leave home. Marry as a wife and run away as a concubine. I, Shen Wan, do not have such a shameless daughter. How can you say that about her?" Chen Roqiu's eyes widened. "That is your daughter." Shen Wan had been a civil official his entire life, and it was rare for him to say such heavy words. Moreover, the one he scolded was his own daughter. Chen Roqiu did not dare to believe her own eyes. After Shen Wan said those words, he looked at Chen Roqiu, and a trace of impatience and disgust flashed in his eyes before he turned and strode out of the room. Chen Roqiu sensitively felt that something was wrong with Shen Wan and almost collapsed to the ground. She grabbed Shi Qing's arm and her nails dug deep into it. It was so painful that Shi Qing's face turned pale, but she did not dare to move. The commotion in Qiu Shui Yuan quickly spread to Rong Jing Tang. Old Shen Furen leisurely sipped her tea, and when she heard that, she smiled without a care. "Do it, do it. Chen Roqiu, just do it. She really think that she is a new daughter-in-law." After a pause, she asked again, "What kind of mother will teach what kind of daughter? All of them do not let me be at ease." Zhang Mama carefully massaged her shoulders and said, "One do not know if the person who is looking for third young lady has been found. Why should we care about him?" Old Shen Furen however got angry and said, "I still do not know how much ability she has and would return with her tail between her legs before long. Losing the Shen family's face for no reason. Let Lao San take care of it, but I do not want to manage these trivial matters." She suddenly thought of something and frowned before asking, "Is Lao San still running to the west courtyard?" Zhang Mama nodded. "These days, third foreign and third master often quarrel, and third master runs to the west courtyard more frequently, staying there for more than half a day. Old Shinforen nodded her head and a glint of light flashed in her eyes. Since that is the case, it is time to take the right path and quickly give birth to a son for number 3. I still want to hold a grandson. She sneered. Chenrochio, that idiot, should also see clearly how much weight she has. Zhang Mama, go and do one thing. Everything in this Shen residence is not going smoothly, so it is time to hold a happy event to get rid of the bad luck. Zhang Mama nodded her head in agreement. That night, Shenwan did not return to the room for a long time and Chenrochio's heart had some misgivings. In the past, when Shenwan was socializing outside, he would always send a servant to pass a message, but she did not know where he went today. Thinking of the quarrel with Shenwan during the day, her heart could not help but feel somewhat anxious. When females reached her age, they would be somewhat sluggish and not as fresh and tender as a young female, but when placed on a male, it was just the right age. Now that there was discord between Shenwan and her, it would be bad if someone secretly took in a new woman outside. Chenrochio was different from Ren Wanyun. Ren Wanyun and Shengui's previous thoughts had long been wiped out by Shengui taking in women one by one. As long as she could sit firmly in the position of the matriarch of the family, Ren Wanyun did not care about the rest. Chenrochio had occupied Shenwan's favor for so many years. What old Shenforen said was right. Chenrochio was extremely jealous and she would not allow Shenwan to have other women. Chapter 633. Thinking of this, Chenrochio was somewhat restless. Hua Yi walked in from outside and said, Foren, old Foren had obtained a few bolts of cloth and asked you to send one over to young Lady Chang. Old Shenforen had always not placed Chang Zaiqing in her eyes and usually treated it as if there was no such person in the residence, so why would she think of Chang Zaiqing today? Chenrochio frowned. Old Foren can just send someone to send it over. Why do I need to go? Hua Yi also did not understand. Most likely it is because old Foren and Chang Zaiqing have a good personal relationship. Chenrochio was currently feeling uneasy and since old Shenforen made her do things, it was rare for her to be distracted. Thus she did not say anything and put on her outer robe and walked towards the western courtyard with Hua Yi and Hua Yi. At this moment the sky was already dark but it was not the time to rest. Chenrochio guessed that Chang Zaiqing was not asleep yet so she did not inform anyone. Upon reaching the western courtyard, unexpectedly the lights in the western courtyard were extinguished early. Chenrochio felt it was somewhat strange but saw Zhao Mama surprised when she saw her and seemed to be somewhat flustered. Why is third foreign here? Old foreign let me come to send cloth to younger sister Qing. Chenrochio said and then poked her head into the boudoir and asked, why? Younger sister Qing is already asleep. Yes. Yes. Zhao Mama said, these few days young lady's body is somewhat tired and slept earlier. Chenrochio felt it was somewhat strange and felt that Zhao Mama's expression was very unnatural. Looking at the few maids around, they all lowered their heads, as if they were afraid to see something. Coincidentally there was a faint movement in the room and it was not very clear, but when the movement was heard, Zhao Mama's expression became even more nervous. Even though Chenrochio was curious, she did not want to have a conflict with Chang Zaiqing. From her point of view, Chang Zaiqing was perhaps a very good knife and was the best to use to deal with the eldest household of the Shen family. Especially since she had not been successful today, there was a burst of anger that could not be vented and the more she wanted to see the eldest household of the Shen family be unlucky. Chenrochio let the maid put down the cloth and was about to leave when her footsteps suddenly stopped. Zhao Mama followed Chenrochio's gaze and saw that Chang Zaiqing's boudoir at the side of the courtyard window. The sachet was crimson with egrets embroidered on it. It was very exquisite. Chenrochio walked over and took the sachet. It was too late for Granny Zhao to stop them. When Shi Qing and Hua Yi saw the sachet, they couldn't help but open their mouths. They were so shocked that they couldn't speak. On the day of Shen Yu's marriage, Chen Roqiu saw that Zhang Ziqing had brought along an extremely good-looking sachet. That sachet's workmanship was exquisite, and it was rare that Chen Roqiu could not bear to part with it. Zhang Ziqing was also generous and gave that sachet to Chen Roqiu. Afterwards, because of Shen Yu's matter, Chen Roqiu wanted to make Shen Wan happy, so she gave that exquisite perfume bag to Shen Wan. The white egret embroidered on the sachet did not look feminine at all. Besides, the fragrance was not the scent of cosmetics. Chen Roqiu remembered that because there were tea leaves in the sachet, there was a fragrance of tea, but Chen Roqiu felt that the tea fragrance was too cold, so she added some dried osmanthus flowers that were left in autumn. There were no two leaves that were exactly the same in the world. Even if Zhang Ziqing was clever and skillful, she would make a sachet that was exactly the same, but not every sachet was filled with osmanthus flowers by Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu picked up the sachet and her hands were actually trembling. Finally she placed it under her nose and smelled it with determination. The sweet scent of osmanthus mixed with the fragrance of tea slowly entered Chen Roqiu's nose, and Chen Roqiu suddenly closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, her gaze made Shi Qing and Hua Yi somewhat afraid. Chapter 634. She suddenly turned towards Xiao Mama, and before Xiao Mama's flustered expression could be put away, it fell into Chen Roqiu's eyes. Chen Roqiu sneered and said, "Do all of you really think that I am a fool?" Finishing, she quickly walked towards Zhang Ziqing's boudoir and was about to break the door open. "Foreign must not." Xiao Mama hurriedly stopped her. Chen Roqiu asked, "Why not?" Xiao Mama was unable to speak. Chen Roqiu's heart could not help but sink and only felt that it was about to be torn apart. However, the more painful it was, the colder her face became. She said to Shi Qing and Hua Yi, "Smash. Ruthlessly smash it for me. I would like to see which pair of adulterers are shamelessly doing such illicit things in a place like my Shenfu. Smash." Shi Qing and Hua Yi did not dare to disobey the orders and immediately went forward to smash the door open. Chen Roqiu conveniently took a lamp at the side and did not wait for Xiao Mama to stop her before walking in. The heater in the room was burning brightly. Clothes, shoes, and jewelry were scattered all over the floor. The two of them were lying on top of each other on the bed. It was a charming and alluring scene. That female's cheeks were pink and she was embarrassed, but that male unhurriedly pulled the clothes over to cover both of their bodies. When one turned around to look, it was Shen Wan. The room was filled with the fragrance of wine. It was obvious that they were drunk and sleeping together, but it could not be described as a mistake. One had feelings and one had intentions. Chen Roqiu and Shen Wan had been husband and wife for so many years. If Shen Wan did not like it, why would he let Zhang Ziqing do it? Moreover, this was Zhang Ziqing's courtyard and it was Shen Wan who took the initiative to come over. Chen Roqiu closed her eyes and fiercely held back the tears that were about to overflow and screamed, "Adulterous couple." The wind blew in the night. In a place a few hundred li away from the Ding capital, there was an inn. A purple-clad youth sat at the table in the middle and looked at the letter in his hands. In a flash, he raised his hand and threw the letter into the brazier at the side, and the letter instantly turned into ashes. "Master, there is a letter from the great Liang." The secret guard Nan Qi by the side said, "His Majesty urges you to quickly return. No need to care about him." Xie Jingxing said without much care, "After the matter is done, I will naturally return. His Majesty is afraid that you will delay the matter." Nan Qi said, "The people at the other end are also paying attention to Ming Qi's movements. Previously His Majesty said that he would choose a consort for you, and after a while, it is almost time. If Master still does not return at this time, one fear that there will be delays. Xie Jingxing glanced at Nan Qi, and Nan Qi immediately kept quiet, but his heart was filled with bitterness. Emperor Yongle had always been a man of his word, and his master was lawless. The servants caught in the middle became the most difficult to deal with. Moreover, the matter of choosing a concubine, others were not clear about it, but these secret guards who followed Xie Jingxing could see it clearly. Xie Jingxing was obviously somewhat special towards the young lady of the Shen family. Not to mention what Emperor Yongle thought of this matter, the dark guards felt that this was an extremely unreliable matter. Shen Miao was a Ming Qi's person, so how would the Shen family agree to their own daughter getting involved with the great Liang's people? But they did not dare to say these words in front of their master. If their master was not happy, they would be sent to guard the tower prison, and the gains would not make up for the losses. Imperial older brother is bored all day. Xie Jingxing said, if one is really bored, one can go back and tell him about the Qin country's plans so that he will not worry about things that he should not worry about. Nan Qi wiped the sweat off his head. He could not afford to offend both of them, and his heart was really blushing with shame. Just as he was thinking, he saw Tai Yi walking in from the outside with a box in his hands. One did not know what it was. When he entered the room, he placed the box on the table and said, the jewelry that young lord ordered is done and the banknotes have been sent over. Chapter 635. Behind him, Nan Qi almost choked on his own saliva. What did Tai Yi say just now? Dozens of jewelry. Nan Qi sneaked a peek at the table. Sure enough, the box on the table was exquisitely made. It was a small box with intricate patterns carved on it. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a tiger's head. What was that? Xie Jingxing opened the box and took a look. It was filled to the brim with all kinds of jewelry. Cat's eye ring, jade bracelet, pearl head mask, jade hairpin. All of these items were of excellent quality. Just this small box alone was worth thousands of gold coins. Nan Qi thought in his heart, could it be that this was something to give to the young lady of the Shen family? But the young lady of the Shen family did not seem to have the temperament to be fond of jewels and jade. Master, are you sure you're going to give this away? However, he was generous enough. Xie Jingxing closed the box and said, correct. Suddenly he thought of something and asked, what recent movements does Fu Xiaoyi have? Tai Yi thought for a moment and said, there is no movement. He is just slightly closer to the Crown Prince. Crown Prince. Xie Jingxing raised an eyebrow and said, watch him carefully. Fu Xiaoyi is not a simple character. Tai Yi acknowledged and was about to leave. Wait. Xie Jingxing called out to him, Shen, you also pay attention. One did not know what kind of luck the Shen family had these few days, as they were in a mess all day long. First there was the matter of Shen Dongling and Shen Yu exchanging marriage, then there was the matter of the Wang family not accepting Shen Yu, and afterwards Shen Yu simply carried the burden and ran away. Now it was even better, as Chen Roqiu caught Chang Zhaoqing and Shen Wan in bed. As a guest of the Shen residence and the daughter of old General Shen's old friend, Zhang Zaiqing's relationship with the Shen residents should be polite. Other than old Shen Furen, the rest of the people would politely deal with Zhang Zaiqing when they saw her, because the current matriarch of the household, Chen Roqiu, seemed to like her very much. Who knew that Zhang Zaiqing was so polite that she would be so polite to Shen Wan's couch? And Chen Roqiu was stabbed in the back by none other than her own meticulous younger sister. Chen Roqiu immediately started to make a ruckus all the way to Rongjingtang. In Rongjingtang, old Shen Furen was sitting in the middle position. Chang Zaiqing and Shen Wan stood at the side. Shenwan did not have any expression and Shingue had an expression of watching a good show. Chang Zai-Ching's eyes drooped and did not speak, as if she was very ashamed. His son Chen Roqiu forced herself to keep back her tears and put on an attitude of not giving up. That's enough. Stop crying. As if she was finally fed up with Chen Roqiu's actions, old Shen Furen said impatiently, "What is the matter with your own husband taking in a young lady that it is worth you to cry to the heavens?" "Mother!" Chen Roqiu shouted, "If master himself takes in young lady and promote her as a concubine, this daughter-in-law would naturally not say anything and would even take the initiative to prepare for husband. But the two of them did this in front of me, without making a sound, in this courtyard. The entire courtyard kept me in the dark. They were clearly trying to humiliate me. Mother, I am also your daughter-in-law, and you are also a woman. If my husband wants to take a concubine, how can I stop him? Why is there a need to use such a humiliating method?" Third Furen. Zhang Zai-Ching could not help but speak, "Today's matter is all a misunderstanding. It was me who drank too much and it has nothing to do with third master. Zai-Ching will not be anyone's concubine and treat this matter as if it did not happen. Tomorrow I will pack up and leave the Shen residence. One hope that older sister will not blame third master." Compared to Chen Roqiu's aggressiveness, Zhang Zai-Ching did not deny the involvement with Shenwan, but put all the blame on herself, making herself seem to be more reasonable. Shenwan's expression slightly changed and said, "What leaving? Naturally I should give you an explanation for the things that I did." Chapter 636. Chen Roqiu originally felt that Chang Zai-Ching's words were somewhat ear-piercing, and at this moment when she heard that Shenwan was still trying to keep Chang Zai-Ching, it added oil to the fire and immediately said, "Explain? How do you explain? Are you going to chase me away and give the position of legal wife to her?" Finishing, she turned her head to look at Chang Zai-Ching and pointed at Chang Zai-Ching's nose as she scolded, "Good white-eyed wolf. You came to the Shen residence and it was me who provided for you to eat and wear. Who knew that you actually have such evil intentions and even climb onto brother-in-law's bed? Really shameless. Unable to seduce Shen Xayan, you came to seduce other people's husband. No wonder one is unable to marry at such an old age. Which proper son would dare to want such a slut that offends public morals?" Not only Shenwan was stunned by her words, even old Shen Furen was somewhat stunned. Chen Roqiu, who boasted of being from a scholarly family, was scolding like a shrew on the streets. This scene was a little too ugly to look at. Shenwan was so angry that he could not speak and Chang Zai-Ching bit her lips and her expression was very forbearing. It was Shingue who was watching the show at the side that could not help but say something, "Younger sister-in-law, this is not right of you. If one's husband wants to take in a concubine, you as a foreign naturally have to help manage it. Originally there was no one else in the 3 courtyards and it is somewhat unreasonable. It is not easy to find a sister that can share your worries, so why are you still blocking it?" Shingue was originally lustful and naturally favored a beauty like Chang Zai-Ching, but since Chang Zai-Ching was Shenwan's person, he would not touch his brother's woman. But Chen Roqiu's sure behavior made Shingue look down on her. In the beginning when Ren Wanyun was around, she did not stop him from taking in a concubine. But the current Chen Roqiu was already extremely sensitive and not only did Shingue's words not appease her, it made her feel like her foot was stepped on. She immediately scolded Shingue without distinguishing between right and wrong. Second older brother actually still have the leisure to care about the matters of the third household. One fear that second older brother's own matters have not been taken care of. Now that there is no more descendants, what is the use of bringing in 8 or 10 more? There is still no one to carry on the family line. It was Shingue's pain to not be able to have any children in this lifetime, but who knew that Chen Roqiu would poke Shingue's life door? Shen Gui was so angry that his face turned green and old Shen Furen's expression did not look good. Lady Qin, then what do you want? Old Shen Furen said angrily. I've been married to the Shen family for so many years, I'm not an unreasonable person. Chase Chang Zai Qing out and I can treat it as nothing has happened. Chen Roqiu said. Impossible. Shen Wan said angrily, since I touched her, I naturally have to take responsibility for her. Anyone can, just not her. Chen Roqiu pointed at Chang Zai Qing and shouted. She could not tolerate that Chang Zai Qing actually betrayed her and finally climbed onto Shen Wan's bed. This made her feel like she had suffered a great humiliation. The most important thing was that Chen Roqiu understood Chang Zai Qing too well. Chang Zai Qing's talent was not inferior to hers and her temperament and appearance was also good. Even if it was Chen Roqiu herself, it was difficult to have any ill feelings towards Chang Zai Qing. Especially now that the matter had come to this point, Shen Wan's words were intentionally or unintentionally protecting Chang Zai Qing, which made Chen Roqiu feel a sense of crisis in her heart. As a female, she understood Shen Wan's thoughts better than anyone else. One fear that after Chang Zai Qing entered the door, not only would they have to share favors, it was even possible to have exclusive favors. It was impossible for her to find such a big rival for herself. Why can't she? The one who spoke was not anyone else but Shen Wan. At this moment Shen Wan was also unable to restrain his anger. Most likely it was because Chen Roqiu had a gentle and graceful appearance in front of him for so many years, but today she was like an unreasonable shrew, making Shen Wan feel that she was unbearable. Chen Roqiu said angrily, then divorce me. If you want to accept her, then divorce me first. Chapter 637. This made Shen Wan so angry that he was flipped upside down. Chen Roqiu however seemed to suddenly have confidence and became more aggressive. After obtaining a separation letter, naturally I will leave without a second word. You can take in whoever you like and it is not a problem to promote. After all, we bridge to bridge and road to road, one parting and both are happy. After saying that, 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. In the end, she looked quite pitiful. Chen Roqiu's words were said out of anger. She and Shen Wan were a young married couple and even if there were many contradictions these days, they were in harmony for so many years. Chen Roqiu understood Shen Wan and knew that Shen Wan still had some feelings for her. Now he was only blinded by Chang Zai Qing and it was impossible for Shen Wan to divorce her because of Chang Zai Qing. Unfortunately Chen Roqiu calculated that Shen Wan still had feelings for her but did not calculate old Shen Furen's attitude. Old Shen Furen sneered and looked at Chen Roqiu as if she was looking at a jumping clown. Separation. You wish, but I'm afraid you've miscalculated. It is impossible for number 3 to give you a separation letter and at most give you a divorce letter. Chang Zai Qing, who was about to speak, swallowed the words in her mouth when she heard it. Chen Roqiu was not to be outdone and asked, why must I be given a divorce letter? Why? Old Shen Furen looked at her. Ever since number 3 married you into the household, there were no other young ladies in the courtyard. Not to mention concubines, there was not even a Tong Fong. As the matriarch, you do not think of arranging things for your husband. This is being jealous and immoral. Number 3 is magnanimous and I also do not want to intervene in number 3's courtyard matters, but after so many years, Chen Roqiu, you have calculated. You have been in the Shen residence for nearly 20 years and have not given birth to a male or female for the 3rd household. Let me ask you, who in the Ding capital is like you, to marry into one's husband's family and not give birth to a son, but also not let one's husband give birth to a son with others? Do you want my Shen family to have no descendants? You are jealous and have no children. Just these 2 out of the 7 rules are enough to grant you a divorce letter. If one were to say that old Shin Furen came from the streets and did not have much experience, but when arguing with others, she would not suffer a loss in words. Especially since she had resentment towards Chen Rochio, now that she caught Chen Rochio in the wrong, her resentment rose steadily, making Chen Rochio speechless. Yes, just based on the fact that there was no heir, the Shin family could push all the blame onto Chen Rochio. Even if it was in public, Chen Rochio would be the one being pointed out. A trace of helplessness flashed across Chen Rochio's heart. She had always thought that she had firmly grasped Shinwan's heart and also thought that she and Shinwan would be in love for a lifetime. But until now, Shinwan's attitude of protecting Zhang Ziqing was like a ruthless slap that smashed Chen Rochio's self-righteousness. Shinwan was no different from other men. He was still greedy for fresh things. She was no different from other women. Once she was old, she would have to give way to younger women. But those old women still had sons by their side and could sit firmly in the position of the matriarch of the family. She did not even have a son, thus this position was in jeopardy. Old Shin Furen looked at Zhang Ziqing and slowly said, "Number 3, since you have touched others, my Shin family is not an unreasonable person and naturally have to take responsibility. There is no one left in Chang young lady's family, and if Chang young lady agrees, it is better to go through the open path and bring up a noble concubine. There is a lot of bad luck in this residence, so it should be washed away." Bringing up a noble concubine. Old Shin Furen was clearly deliberately going against Chen Rochio and was putting Chen Rochio's face down. Chen Rochio looked at old Shin Furen, and on old Shin Furen's wrinkled face, there seemed to be a flash of a smile. That smile made Chen Rochio's heart enlightened. How did she find out about Zhang Ziqing and Shinwan? It was when old Shin Furen instructed her to go to the western courtyard to deliver the cloth. It was not earlier or later, but at that time. Could it be that old Shin Furen did it on purpose? These days she was worried about Xinyu and could not care about other things. She did not find out about Zhang Ziqing and Shinwan, but old Shin Furen might have found out about it. Old Shin Furen wholeheartedly wanted to bring a concubine for Shinwan and found out that Zhang Ziqing and Shinwan were in contact. One fear that she would not be happy, and perhaps she added fuel to the fire just for today's situation. To let Zhang Ziqing enter the residence and force her to such a situation. Old Shin Furen. Chen Rochio's heart suddenly gave birth to infinite hatred as she gritted her teeth. Such humiliation. Unreasonable. Chapter 638. The general's residence in the Ding capital was originally decorated with flowers, and in the eyes of outsiders, it was only revered. But whenever the general's residence was mentioned, everyone would think of the formidable great general's hard work and heroic horse riding. But ever since the first households separated from the Shin family 2 years ago and were removed from the Shin family, the general's residence declined at a speed visible to others. Even though Shin Gui and Shinwan tried their best to use their careers to support the former glory of the general's residence, unfortunately the paths of scholars and military officials were different. Scholars relied on their brains and mouths, and if they wanted to obtain meritorious services, it would take a long time. Military officials were different. After fighting a battle and cutting off a few heads of the enemy, they could gain the respect of the people. After the decline of the general's residence, even though there was still a name, it was not as attractive as before. These few days, it was not easy to attract people's attention again, but bad news spread for 1,000 li. The most surprising thing was the matter in front of one's eyes. One did not know when it started, but there was a rumor circulating in the streets that the third master of the third household of the Shin family, Shinwan, intended to divorce his wife. Among the 3 sons of the Shin family, other than Shin Xan, even though Shin Gui was smooth, he was too lustful and did not do things clearly. Shinwan, on the other hand, was different from his second brother. He was clean and honest, and he was not overly lustful towards women. Although he would play around with his colleagues, he would not cause any messy trouble. He also cherished his feathers, and in everyone's eyes, he was a sophisticated and talented person. If he could endure for a few more years, his position would most likely be higher and higher. And those officials' Furens also had a good impression of Shenwan. Not because of anything else, but because Shenwan doted on his wife and daughter and did not have any other female in the inner courtyard. It was inevitable that those officials' Furens would have some messy matters in their courtyards and treated Qinruoqiu with jealousy and envy. After all, it was not every day to meet a husband who only treated one person well. Who knew that at this critical juncture, when Shen Yu was already married, Qinruoqiu and Shenwan suddenly had the matter of divorcing their wives? The rumors in the streets were all true, so one said. That is not so. One heard that it was because third Shenfuren did not have a son. You see, now there is not a single grandson in the Shen residence. One cannot just end the line like this. Not to mention that second Master Shen brought concubines into the residence one after another. He also had 2 sons in the past. The third branch has never had a son. No wonder they are so anxious now. Speaking of which, third Master Shen's career is not bad. With such a big family business, it is a pity that there is no one to inherit it in the future. That Miss Chen's stomach doesn't live up to expectations and she can't give birth to a son after all these years. She doesn't even allow her husband to take a concubine. She is truly rude. Normal people wouldn't have this kind of attitude. If I was third Master Shen, I would not be able to bear it. Even concubines are not allowed. TSK, such a virtuous and jealous woman, but still childless. It can be considered as one of a kind. Third Shenfuren is really pitiful. The rumors in the entire Ding capital were all on Shenwan's side. Qinruoqiu was originally a famous talented female in the Ding capital and came from a scholarly family, thus she was very popular in the circle of noble Furens. But this time, no matter if it was the common people or those matrons who flattered her or were on good terms with her, all of them unanimously accused her of wrongdoing. Perhaps it was because Qinruoqiu lived too blissfully in front of everyone that it made others jealous, but now that that blissful life had a tendency to burst out, everyone was happy to gloat or hit her when she was down. In the Shen residence, Qinruoqiu smashed the white porcelain vase in front of her with a bang, and the vase splashed into pieces on the floor. The floor was full of dregs, but Qinruoqiu still could not vent her hatred and overturned the teacups on the table. Shi Qing and Hua Yi did not even dare to breathe loudly and allowed Qinruoqiu to create such a big movement. Chapter 639. Shameless, shameless. Qinruoqiu screamed, that pair of adulterers forced me to such a situation and it is actually my fault. Ridiculous. Idiot. The rumors outside were all unfavorable to Qinruoqiu, and Qinruoqiu had always wanted to save face and always boasted that she was a young lady from a scholarly family. Now that she was said to be a shrew who was jealous and had no children, how would she be willing? It must be that slut who talked nonsense outside. Qinruoqiu gritted her teeth. She had mentioned the divorce letter to Shenwan in a fit of pique. She had merely wanted to scare Shenwan. Who knew that this news would spread to everyone on the streets and alleys, almost pushing her and Shenwan to an irreconcilable point. The most disappointing thing was that Shenwan hadn't even come to see her until now. It must be that slut who urged Master. Qinruoqiu's nails dug deep into her palms. Old Shenfuren was now deliberately promoting Zhang Ziqing to go against her. Now that Shen Yu's whereabouts were unknown and Shenwan was bewitched by Zhang Ziqing, in such a big Shen residence, there was actually no one standing by her side. One feared that the entire Ding capital would feel that she was the one in the wrong. Qinruoqiu's heart suddenly felt a sense of helplessness of fighting alone. Madam, now that the old madam has given the order, what exactly should we do next? Hua Yi finally couldn't help but ask. Either let Chang Zaiqing enter the residence as a noble concubine or let Shenwan write a divorce letter. No matter which it was, Chen Roqiu could not accept it. But in the Shen residence, she was indeed powerless. At this moment, her love for Shenwan had completely turned into hatred. She suddenly stood up and sneered, "How can there be such a cheap thing in this world? The Shen family humiliated me, could it be that I still have to comply? Pack up, I want to go back to the Qin family." Chen Roqiu returned to her maiden home. Master Qin was a prefectural official and was responsible for repairing all the big and small documents in Ming Qi's palace. Because he was a civil official and was well-read, Chen Roqiu had always considered herself to be from a scholarly family. Moreover, when old Master Qin was young, he was indeed the top scorer of the imperial court. Chen Roqiu's marriage to Shenwan also had the intention of a marriage alliance between the Qin and Shen family. Of course, it was Shenwan himself who chose Chen Roqiu. Even though Master Qin was not a person who was protective of his shortcomings, he paid great attention to the family's reputation. Especially that pretentious and virtuous manner which was almost the same as Chen Roqiu. Thus when Chen Roqiu was divorced or had the reputation of being jealous, old Master Qin would definitely be unhappy. The Qin family and the Shen family were destined to have an unclear lawsuit. When Shen Miao heard these words from Jingzhi's mouth, she was reading under the lamp. Jingzhi said, now that third Furen had returned to her maiden home, this matter would not be left at that. If they found out that those rumors were spread by young lady, what would happen? Those rumors in the marketplace were not spread by Zhang Zaiqing, nor was it spread by Shenwan, nor was it spread by old Shen Furen, but by Shen Miao. Shen Miao had interacted with the third household for a lifetime and knew that even though Chen Roqiu thought highly of herself and loved Shenwan deeply, unfortunately she was not stupid. When she just found out about Shenwan and Zhang Zaiqing's adultery, she would definitely be infuriated and do things impulsively. But after thinking about it, she knew that if she put on some grievances in front of Shenwan, Shenwan would not completely forget about the old feelings towards Chen Roqiu and would soften a little. At that time when Zhang Zaiqing enters the door, it would not be known who would emerge victorious between Chen Roqiu and Zhang Zaiqing, but at least Chen Roqiu would not be defeated so easily. It would be better to let out some rumors. Chen Roqiu's heart would be even angrier and her relationship with Shenwan would only reach an irreparable stage. A female's vengeful heart was very scary and it would be more interesting to stir up trouble. As a matter of fact, Chen Roqiu was really forced to return to her maiden home. Chapter 640. After taking this step, it would be very difficult to turn back. There would be cracks in both parties' hearts, and the reunion of broken mirrors was a story that would only appear in dramas. Shen Miao felt that there were many things that she could not see clearly in the inner palace in her previous life, but now from a different angle, with an outsider's identity, it was clear at a glance. To play with others in the palm of one's hand, even if it was an enemy, her mood was not that good. Perhaps it was because she would also think that when Mei Furen looked at her, it was the same as how she looked at Chen Roqiu now. Do not worry. After pausing for a moment, she then said, it would not be that easy to find out. She had handed this matter over to the Feng Xian pawn shop to handle, and since she had accepted the money, Jiu Shu would definitely give her a good reward. The Feng Xian pawn shop had been doing business in the Ding capital for so long, so it was impossible that they did not understand this little thing. Jingzhi did not speak anymore, and seeing that the window outside was not closed, she wanted to get up and close it. As she was leaving, she said, why did you forget to close the window all day? The weather is so cold and the cold wind would enter. What if young lady's body catches a cold? Wait. Shen Miao called out to her and looked at the window, let the air in first. The room is very stuffy. Later I will close it myself. When Jingzhi saw Shen Miao's determined look, even though she had some doubts in her heart as to where it was stuffy in this bright room, she did not say anything. She then fried the wick of the oil lamp for Shen Miao and said, "Young lady should also rest early." Jingzhi withdrew. Shen Miao looked at the slightly swaying candle flame and was about to pick it up and walk to the side. Just as she was halfway there, that candle flame seemed to be flicked by something and shook violently. A familiar voice sounded, and with a playful laziness that had not been heard for a long time, "Did you not specially leave the door open for me? Why do you want to sleep?" Shen Miao turned her head back and saw the youth leaning on the window sill with one hand supporting his chin. A pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes casually looked over, lazy and charming. Even in the darkness of the night, one would not be able to ignore his radiance. He saw that Shen Miao was slightly startled and his figure flashed and entered the room. Naturally, he snatched the oil lamp from Shen Miao's hands and walked to the small table to sit down. His actions were as smooth as flowing water, as if he was entering his own room. "You have returned?" Shen Miao asked. Tsk, Xie Jingxing stared at her and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Why, did you miss me?" Shen Miao was used to his frivolous and ambiguous words and simply ignored him. He walked over to the small table and sat down. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "You did well regarding Chen Roqiu's matter." Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him. "You know again." Xie Jingxing's informants were all over the Ding capital, not to mention that Ji Yushu of the Fengxian pawnshop had some relationship with Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao let Ji Yushu go out to spread rumors, and one feared that Ji Yushu would tell Xie Jingxing about it, so Shen Miao did not care about it now. No wonder when Chang Ziqing came to the Ding capital, you had such an attitude. Xie Jingxing, however, was talking to himself and looked at Shen Miao again. One could not tell if his tone was admiration or sigh as he said half-truthfully, "Really vicious and merciless." Shen Miao declined to comment. Xie Jingxing seemed to have thought of something, and one did not know where he took out a box and threw it into Shen Miao's arms. Shen Miao was almost hit by that box and felt that the small box was heavy. When she subconsciously caught it, she saw that there was a big tiger carved on the outer shell of the box. The tiger's head was lively and had a bit of charmingly naive look, but the appearance of it baring its fangs and brandishing its claws was very fierce. Thinking of the white tiger called Jiao Jiao that Xie Jingxing raised, Shen Miao endured the anger in her heart and opened the box. When she opened it, she was almost dazzled by the colorful things in the box. She saw that the heavy box was filled with exquisite and luxurious jewelry. Not to mention that it was a full box. Even if it was just a single piece, it would be expensive. Why would Xie Jingxing give her jewelry for no reason? Shen Miao looked at him and shook her head. "I do not need jewelry." Chapter 641. Xie Jingxing said, "These are all valuable and hard to find. You're a girl, what's wrong with buying some jewelry?" Shen Miao thought about it and asked, "Perhaps Fengxian pawnshop can pawn it." Xie Jingxing choked on her words and asked with a frown, "Are you short of money?" Having more money is always a good thing. Many connections require money, and after a long time, it is inevitable that money will be tight. Shen Miao said frankly. Now that he was facing Xie Jingxing, he was not as vigilant as before, thus his words were filled with anger. Anyway, Xie Jingxing's hands and eyes were everywhere, and there were some things that he would be able to find out by himself even if she did not tell him, so there was no need to go through the trouble of hiding it. When Xie Jingxing heard it, he took out a round jade token from his sleeves and said, "This is the gold and jade private bank's token. Take this and withdraw however much money you want." He casually threw the jade token to Shen Miao and said with some displeasure, "Don't be so blind all day." Shen Miao. She was after all an empress in her past life and had seen a lot of gold and silver treasures. It was during her youth that she was fostered by the second and third household to have some vulgar tastes. Afterwards in the palace and in the Qin country, she was considered to have a lot of knowledge, but now she was written with a few stars and said that she had no eyesight, which made her feel somewhat sullen. But she picked up the jade tablet. She didn't know what material the jade tablet was made of. It was crystal clear and cold to the touch. Shen Miao knew that Xie Jingxing's words would definitely not lie. This jade tablet was indeed able to withdraw banknotes from Jin and Yu Private Bank. It was just that Jin and Yu Private Bank was the largest private bank in Mingqi, and even the imperial family would sometimes come and go from there. Xie Jingxing was now a person of the Great Liang, and to think that he could get this kind of thing, he was really too deep. Shen Miao returned the jade token back to Xie Jingxing and said, "One will not receive a reward without doing anything." Xie Jingxing stared at her with interest and said, "Really have backbone." He nodded his head to indicate Shen Miao to look at the box. "This is not ordinary jewelry. Take a look." Shen Miao was somewhat suspicious and casually picked up a pair of jadeite rings. That jadeite was of excellent quality, and even if it was placed in a jewelry shop, it would most likely be a good item. As Shen Miao looked at it, she noticed that the buckle of the double hoop was somewhat strange. After carefully touching it, it was actually a hidden buckle. She looked up at Xie Jingxing. "What is this?" Xie Jingxing smiled. "Concealed weapon." "Concealed weapon." Shen Miao fiddled with the hidden button and was about to press it down subconsciously, but was stopped by Xie Jingxing. Immediately following that, Xie Jingxing stood up and went around to her back. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders and taught her how to use the jade bracelets. "There are needles here. The poison needles might hurt our own people. Ordinary people will be knocked unconscious for a while if they are hit by the needles. It is effective within 3 inches. Don't put it anywhere. There's poison powder in the hairpin. Pulling out the hairpin can blind you. It can be used to deal with bandits. There's a blade hidden in the bracelet. Pull it open, and it's a small knife. If you are tied up with a rope, this substitute knife can cut the rope. There is a whistle in the 8 treasures earrings. If it is really urgent, you can blow the whistle. My people are everywhere in the Ding capital, and if there is any danger, they will rush over to save you." He carefully explained to Shen Miao one by one, and his words were not as frivolous and lazy as usual. There was a rare seriousness, and his long eyelashes were enough to make one's heart palpitate. His hands were slender and fair, and his beautiful peach blossom eyes were half closed. Occasionally he would glance at Shen Miao, and it was as charming as the rippling spring water. Shen Miao felt somewhat hot. The windows were clearly open, but there was a heavy stuffiness in the room. When he bent over, he looked down and saw that Shen Miao was almost leaning against his chest, and even her back seemed to be covered with a layer of sweat. She turned her head to look and saw that Xie Jingxing's beautiful lips were slightly upturned, as if he was always smiling. Shen Miao seemed to be scalded as she turned her gaze away. Chapter 642. She was somewhat distracted and was noticed by Xie Jingxing, thus he was somewhat dissatisfied. He knocked Shen Miao's head and said, "Concentrate." Shen Miao moved forward and sat a little further away from him and pretended to be calm. "I have already seen it and I have remembered it. I will practice again in the future." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up. "Didn't you say no?" Shen Miao turned her head. "You remembered wrongly." With this turn of head, because Xie Jingxing was looking down at her, she almost bumped into him. Shen Miao was slightly startled and her cheeks quickly turned red. This youth's brows were unreasonably handsome, and usually he was neither good nor evil and was somewhat frivolous, but when he used that pair of beautiful eyes to look at you, it was as if the world received a chilly spring rain in one night of winter. Layers upon layers of red flowers bloomed in Brocade Official City, and it was indescribably romantic. Xie Jingxing laughed softly. His voice was as mellow as fine wine and was so intoxicating that it made one a little flustered. Xie Jingxing stretched out his hand and brushed aside the stray hairs on Shen Miao's forehead. He carefully stared at Shen Miao's eyes and said with half doubt and half innocence, "Why are you blushing?" Shen Miao suddenly stood up and walked 2 steps with her back facing Xie Jingxing. "The room is too stuffy." It was because her back was facing Xie Jingxing that she missed the flash of smile in the purple-clad youth's eyes. "Because you feel ashamed of receiving a reward without any effort," Xie Jingxing said without much care. "Simple. Just make some pastries." Finishing, he thought of something and said, "I have done many things but still could not exchange for it. It really makes one annoyed that someone could get it without doing anything." "What?" Shen Miao did not understand the meaning of Xie Jingxing's words. But she saw that Xie Jingxing had already stood up and said, "Never mind. Today I only gave you concealed weapons. These things are suitable for silencing people and one think that it is to your liking." Shen Miao really wanted to retort but felt that what Xie Jingxing said was indeed right. She lived on the tip of a knife, and even though she had the protection of the Shen family behind her, the things that she did were extremely dangerous. If there was a day that the Shen family could not protect her, she could only protect herself. This box full of hidden weapons that looked like jewelry was undoubtedly precious to her. Xie Jingxing was indeed a person who understood her. Thinking of how she treated Xie Jingxing as an opponent previously, Pei Lang's words in her previous life were indeed right. The opponent was the one who understood her the most. Xie Jingxing suddenly thought of something and said, "Do you know the whereabouts of Shen Yu?" "Shen Yu?" Shen Miao shook her head. She had the Shen family's informant and knew that Shen Yu had escaped from home and her whereabouts were unknown. Chen Roqiu's people had yet to find Shen Yu, and Shen Miao herself had also sent people to search for Shen Yu's whereabouts, but they returned without any success. Shen Miao also suspected that even though the Ding capital was big, it would not be to this extent to look for someone. Moreover, for a pampered female like Shen Yu, how many days could she endure outside alone? "You know where Shen Yu is?" Shen Miao asked. Xie Jingxing said, "She is in the residence of Prince Qin." After Xie Jingyun left, Shen Miao pressed her forehead before sitting down on the couch again. The candle flame in front of the small table was about to burn out. Shen Yu actually went to the residence of the Qin prince, and Shen Yu had a relationship with Huang Fu Hao. In this lifetime, she had inexplicably changed the direction of many things. For example, Shen Yu's fate. Now that Shen Yu had entered the residence of Prince Qin, no one would be able to predict what kind of changes would happen in the future. Shen Miao touched her chest and saw that box. She reached over and picked out a pair of jade bracelets from the box and wore it on her hand. The emerald green bracelets made her wrist more slender and fair like a painting. It was originally an ice-cold jade ornament, but Shen Miao felt that it was slightly hot, just like a youth's eyes. Chapter 643. She rubbed her hair irritably and closed the box, but inadvertently saw that beside the box, there was a jade token lying quietly. Jinyu Private Bank's token. She had obviously returned it to Xie Jingxing but did not know when Xie Jingxing threw it here. It seemed that he did it on purpose. Shen Miao had never seen anyone give such a large amount of money to others, so Shen Miao felt pity for the great Liang's Emperor Yonglu. After keeping the jade token, Shen Miao shook her head and thought that if she were to meet Xie Jingxing in the future, she would have to return this thing to him. In the residence of Prince Qin, deep into the night, there was a female sitting in front of the mirror to dress up. The female sitting in front of the mirror was also at the age of youth and was considered to be dainty and beautiful. Especially with the faint scholarly smell that was emitted from her body, she was considered to be a special beauty. At this moment she was wearing a snow-white inner garment and looking at the mirror. She was clearly a beautiful flower, but her expression was somewhat gloomy. This person was not anyone else but Xin Yu, who had been missing for many days in the Xin residence. Xin Yu had never thought that one day she would have a relationship with the crown prince of the Qin country. Originally she planned to leave home and head to the residence of Prince Ding. She thought that Fu Xiaoyi had a gentle gentleman's temperament, and she was also the daughter of the third household of the Xin family. Fu Xiaoyi would not sit idly by and ignore her even if they were colleagues. Moreover, she was born beautiful and had a friendly temperament with unlimited talent in poetry and painting. Even a stone person would not be moved. At that time she only needed to tell of her grievances in front of Prince Ding and obtain Prince Ding's love. She would be able to win over Prince Ding's heart. But she had never left the residence alone before, so how would she know where the residence of Prince Ding was? After asking for the location of others, she was afraid that the servants of the Xin family would chase after her and had no choice but to hide. There were often such females in the Ding capital who either escaped from marriage or committed a crime and escaped from home. A female who was alone was the easiest to be targeted. Xin Yu was also targeted by others. The people who targeted her were a group of local ruffians, and before she could find the residence of Prince Ding, something happened in a remote alley. Those ruffians snatched her bag and even wanted to insult her innocence. In a moment of desperation, Xin Yu could only shout out that she was the niece of the formidable great general. Although she was not reconciled, Xin Yu's heart was clear. His father's name was not as resounding as Xin Wan's name, especially now that Xin Xian had returned to the Ding capital and obtained the heavy responsibility of Emperor Wenhui. Compared to the past, it was better to call out Xin Xian's name as a deterrent. In the end, someone happened to pass by, heard her shout, and saved the examiner. It was only later that Xin Yu found out that this person was from the residence of Prince Qin. Then Xin Yu saw Huang Fuhao. Xin Yu only saw Huang Fuhao once at the tribute banquet, and as the other party had a noble status, she did not dare to do anything out of line. This time she thought that it was Huang Fuhao who helped her conveniently, so Xin Yu thanked him properly. Who knew that Huang Fuhao seemed to be very interested in her? To be exact, he was very interested in Xin Miao and actually asked a lot of things about Xin Yu. Xin Yu felt that Huang Fuhao most likely took a fancy to Xin Miao, and her heart was even more jealous. No matter what, Huang Fuhao was the crown prince of Qin Kingdom, and one day, he would become the emperor of Qin Kingdom. If Xin Miao and Huang Fuhao were to be together, Xin Miao would be the crown prince's consort, and in the future she would be the empress of Qin country. Xin Miao would be a Sufei and could also be a Guifei. No matter what, there would be endless glory and wealth. Thus, Xin Yu said a lot of Xin Miao's faults. She slowly and faintly revealed that Xin Miao was a scheming and untalented female. Sure enough, after Xin Yu finished speaking, she saw that Huang Fuhao's expression was not good. This made Xin Yu's heart very pleased. Huang Fuhao planned to send Xin Yu back, but Xin Yu heard that Xin Wan wanted to divorce Chen Roqiu, and the fact that Chen Roqiu returned to her maiden family in a fit of anger. The moment Xin Yu heard it, she was unable to restrain her anger and planned to return to the residence to seek justice for her mother. But just as she was about to leave, she thought that if she were to return now, Xin Wan would definitely marry Wang Bai as a pinchi. Now in the Xin residence, Xin Wan and old Xin Furen were still angry because of the matter of her and Xin Dongling exchanging marriage, so there would not be any good fruit to eat when she returned. Xin Yu could not think of any good ideas and was also not willing to see Chen Roqiu suffer. One had to know that once Chen Roqiu was divorced, even her identity as a daughter would be implicated, and in the future she would not have a foothold in the Xin residence. Xin Yu already had a lot of resentment towards Xin Wan and old Xin Furen, and this time she was even more unreconciled. Until the end, she thought of an idea. Huang Fuhao was the crown prince of Qin country and his power was monstrous. If Huang Fuhao were to take action, perhaps everything would be much simpler. As for her, she only needed to please Huang Fuhao. She must stay in the residence of Prince Qin to prevent the Shen family from finding and manipulating her. Chapter 644. After a few days of light snow in the Ding capital, the skies finally cleared up. Shen Miao was in the courtyard drying the books, and they were all military books that Shen Qiu brought over. These few days in the room, one feared that mold would grow and she had to dry them clean. Jingzhe and Guyu were drying the bedding in the courtyard when Jingzhe said, "One heard that the lawsuit between the Qin and Shen family is very lively and many people are watching. Now that it has been dragged for so long, one do not know what the final result would be. What other result can there be? Both sides are doing a thankless job." Guyu disdainfully said, "To bring the family matters to court, it is really a joke. Fortunately Master and Furen separated early, otherwise, they might be implicated together. Chen Roqiu's maiden family and the Shen family started a lawsuit. Old Master Chen was a stubborn old man who cared about his face and didn't want to admit defeat. He had to fight for everything and wouldn't allow himself to be the one in the wrong. Although Chen Roqiu was already married, old Master Chen still had to protect Chen Roqiu's reputation. This was naturally not because he loved Chen Roqiu but because he did not allow the Shen family to look down on the Qin family. Chen Roqiu's mother was a powerful one. Her heart ached for Chen Roqiu, and with a few words, she managed to persuade Master Qin to fight a lawsuit with the Shen family regarding the divorce. The Qin family said that when Chen Roqiu married into the Shen residence, she was conscientious and managed the family business for Shenwan. She also wanted to bring in concubines for Shenwan, but it was Shenwan who refused. Chen Roqiu had married into the Shen residence for many years, and everyone outside knew that she was educated and reasonable, gentle and graceful. Now, for the sake of a woman of unknown origin who had come to seek shelter, he had to divorce his wife. This was truly a case of spoiling the concubine to the detriment of the wife. As for the Shen family, they said that even though Chen Roqiu was the mistress, she was unable to give birth to a son and did not want to help her husband to take in a few more concubines. Now that her husband was taking in more people, she even obstructed him, showing that she was very jealous. One said the mother-in-law was unkind, and the other said the daughter-in-law was unfilial. What a big farce. The passers-by in the Ding capital were watching with relish. In the end, the petition was submitted to the Yamen. The Yamen rarely handled such cases. Moreover, this lawsuit wasn't a big deal. The Qin family's master was a prefectural official and Shenwan's official position wasn't a small official. He couldn't afford to offend either side, so he could only drag it out. Shenwan and Chen Roqiu's fate as husband and wife had come to an end in this lawsuit. Firstly, it was because Shenwan was after all an official of the court, yet he was involved in a lawsuit because of a family matter. Those imperial censors who were always idling around all day finally found someone who could be of help and naturally would not let him go. Shenwan's career would be obstructed because of this. Secondly, it was because Chang Ziqing was pregnant. It could be said that Chang Ziqing's body came at the right time. To be pregnant at this juncture, it almost pushed Chen Roqiu out. Even though Shenwan had doted on Chen Roqiu for so many years, it did not mean that he did not look forward to his son. If Chang Ziqing was pregnant with a son, then he would have someone to carry on the family line in this lifetime. Thus the more one looked at Chang Ziqing, the more one felt that Chang Ziqing was good, while Chen Roqiu had become a piece of cloth that was despised, and one did not even take a look at her. Shen Miao smiled gently, "Do not forget to bribe some money to the Darren in the Yamen." Guyu complied and was somewhat puzzled as she asked, "Is young lady helping third master or third Furen? Which side are these tails of silver going to?" Shen Miao let Guyu take some money to bribe the people in the Yamen, but one did not know who Shen Miao was bribing as Shen Miao's letter had not been seen by them. Guyu softly said, "It is better not to get involved in this kind of matter. That family is not a good person." Even though her voice was soft, it was still heard by Shen Miao. Shen Miao said, neither side. Fighting a lawsuit was the most expensive thing to burn money. Poor families would fight a lawsuit barehanded, so the case would be concluded very quickly. But those who had a little bit of wealth would mostly persevere for a few more days. It was not because of anything else. The people in the yamen also wanted to fish for money. The longer the lawsuit, the more the yamen would fish. Chapter 645. In Shen Miao's previous life in the palace, she had seen Fu Xiaoyi wanting to deal with a court official. That court official was originally Prince Shou's person and Fu Xiaoyi wanted to deal with him but could not do it openly, so he schemed that court official to be involved in a lawsuit and at the end he lost his entire family's fortune. The yamen and medical centers were the places that required the most money. Shen Miao only had to think that Shen Wan and Chen Roqiu, these two people, in their previous lifetime, also did not hold back their efforts in framing the first household of the Shen family. She could not wait to tear up these two hypocritical people. Wouldn't it be the biggest joke in the world if a husband and wife, who were originally refined people, had to go to court? Moreover, Shen Miao had to fork out some money herself to remind the Yamen's people to drag on the case a little longer. Not to mention losing one's family fortune, the Shen and Chen family's vitality would be greatly damaged. Moreover, Shen Wan and Chen Roqiu were both people who wanted face, so this time round it was absolutely impossible for them to reconcile. Nothing could be more perfect than this. Shen Miao's gaze turned slightly cold, but Chang Zaiqing was actually pregnant at this time. Thinking of the role that Chang Zaiqing played in Luo Shuaiyan's death in the previous lifetime, Shen Miao could not help but sneer. She said, call Mo Qing over and let him find some people to go to Lu province to pick someone up for me. In the Lu province, there was not only Chang Zaiqing. Naturally there was also Chang Zaiqing's husband and son. In the previous lifetime, Chang Zaiqing had ruined Luo Shuaiyan and lived for a long time without any worries before she was exposed. Now this old foundation was exposed by herself. It was necessary to add some jokes to the farce of the third branch. When Shen Miao was thinking about the third household of the Shen family, Shen Wan remained in the residence of Prince Ding. Shen Wan was a smart person in the turmoil of the princes fighting for the throne, but he was always unsure of his own footsteps. The crown prince was legitimate but sick and weak. Prince Shou had his consort mother and was favored but was arrogant. Prince Li had a wide network of connections but was not favored by Emperor Wenhui. Only Prince Ding formed his own faction but did not seem to be interested in the throne. But Shen Wan had an intuition that Fu Xiaoyi was not as uninterested in the emperor's position as he appeared on the surface. This made Shen Wan even more hesitant, but now that the Shen residents had met with misfortune after Shen Xian's return, even Shen Wan himself felt that it was somewhat unlucky. His official career was getting more and more difficult and one feared that no one would want to stand in the other prince's team. At this time, he thought of Fu Xiaoyi. In the early years when Shen Xian had not separated from the family, Fu Xiaoyi actually treated Shen Wan well and even had the intention to rope him in. Of course Shen Wan understood that Fu Xiaoyi was aiming for Shen Xian's military power, but at that time he had more leeway to choose, thus he delayed and played Tai Chi. Afterwards Fu Xiaoyi seemed to understand his intention and was not as warm as he was at the beginning. Now that the Shen family was in decline and was not like before, if Shen Wan still wanted to keep his official career and walk down a prosperous path, adding that Chang Zaiqing might be able to give birth to a son for him, Shen Wan's original, neutral, path instantly changed to wanting to break through. Great wealth came with great danger. He still wanted to give it a try. So when Shen Wan finally came to the residence of Prince Ding, he finally chose to defect. Shen Wan himself also felt that it was somewhat funny. If he had made this decision earlier, perhaps Shen Yu would not need to marry into the Wang family, exchange of marriage and escape. Shen Yu could still win over Fu Xiaoyi's heart. But if Xin Yu did not exchange of marriage, perhaps he and Chen Roqiu would not have come to this step, Zhang Ziqing would not be pregnant and he would not seek refuge with Prince Ding. The world's affairs were a freak combination of factors and fate loved to play tricks on people. Fu Xiuyi sat on the main seat and ordered people to serve tea to Xinhuan. There was no need to say any polite words as both parties were well aware of the purpose of the visit. Fu Xiuyi smiled warmly. Shindaran is busy with family matters today and suddenly visit. What is the matter? Chapter 646. Xinhuan's face was filled with shame. Now the matter between him and Chen Roqiu had caused the entire court to be in an uproar and the colleagues looked at him with an expression of watching a joke. This was a painful torment for Xinhuan who cherished his reputation. Xinhuan said, "This official is willing to sacrifice my life for your highness." When Fu Xiuyi heard it, he only smiled and did not answer. One did not know if he believed Xinhuan's words or not. There were only the two of them and the servants in the entire hall. This kind of silence gradually made the atmosphere tense up. Cold sweat started to form on Xinhuan's forehead. One did not know how long this kind of silence lasted until Xinhuan felt that his entire body was drenched in sweat before he heard Fu Xiuyi's voice from above. "But now that Shin Xan had already left the residence, what about you?" Xinhuan's heart thumped. Fu Xiuyi was indeed targeting Shin Xan. Originally, when the second household had not declined, Xinhuan had guessed that Xin Yuan was working for Fu Xiuyi. It was just that what could Fu Xiuyi make Xin Yuan do? Xin Yuan was taken in by Fu Xiuyi at a young age and it was not enough just because of his talent. Afterward Xinhuan thought clearly that it was most likely that Xin Yuan monitored Shin Xan or that he did something in Shin Xan's daily affairs. But afterward Xin Yuan died and Fu Xiuyi thought that he was lacking a person like Xin Yuan. Afterward Shin Xan simply went to the Shaochun city, thus this person was not needed. Who knew that 2 years later Shin Xan would return to the capital with a strength that one could not ignore and would inevitably become a dazzling existence in Fu Xiuyi's eyes. Xinhuan carefully said, "Even though he has left the residence, there is still 1 or 2 brotherly sentiments. If your highness has any instructions, this official will definitely do his best." "Good." Fu Xiuyi said, "This prince appreciates talented people and also believe in Shindaran's ability. Coincidentally there is a matter recently and since Shindaran is coincidentally here today, one will not bother others. Since it is one's own people, one believe that Shindaran will handle it well." Xinhuan was somewhat uneasy. Fu Xiuyi's words were clearly to give him a difficult problem. If it was done well, he would naturally be Fu Xiuyi's people, but if it was not done well, he would not be able to prove that he was a talented person and would be ruthlessly abandoned by Fu Xiuyi. And because of the consequences of this difficult problem, Xinhuan must bear it himself. It was a deal. Xinhuan steeled his heart and said, "Your Highness, please instruct me." Fu Xiuyi looked at him with satisfaction. "This matter is not difficult. This prince knows that General Shin has a daughter, 5th Shin young lady, whom he loves like jewels. Now 5th Shin young lady has reached the age of engagement." Xinhuan abruptly raised his head. Originally when Shin Miao was chasing after Fu Xiuyi shouting that she wanted to marry Fu Xiuyi did not even look at Shin Miao. Occasionally, when he talked about it with the other princes and courtiers, he would look extremely annoyed. After all, being liked by such an idiot and stupid person was no different from a humiliation to a prince. But now, Xinhuan's heart was pounding. Shin Miao had become more beautiful and her temperament had gradually calmed down. She had shed the original idiotic look and could be said to be a very good noble female in the Ding capital. If Fu Xiuyi wanted to marry Shin Miao, with the enmity between the first and third household of the Shin family, once Shin Miao gained power, she would definitely suppress him. Be it public or private, the better off Shen Miao was, the better off the first household of the Shen family, and the more dangerous it was for Shen Wan. He did not want Shen Miao to walk higher and higher and hoped that Shen Miao would be as cheap as dust. Shen Wan endured the bitterness in his heart and said, "Your Highness. Want to marry fifth lady? This prince?" Fu Xiu laughed as if he had heard a funny joke. He shook his head and said, "Not this prince. It is this prince's imperial older brother." Chapter 647. Shen Wan was startled. Fu Xiuyi's voice slowly spread to his ears. "Let fifth Shen young lady marry this prince's fourth older brother, Prince Zhou." Shen Wan was surprised at first, but when he thought about it and understood, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. What kind of person was Shen Miao? She was Shen Xian's daughter. The southern Xia and northern Shen, the Xia family was considered to have really declined, and the Shen family of Ming Qi was the strongest. Whoever married Shen Miao, that person would have the military power of Ming Qi. Shen Miao's identity was destined that she would not be able to marry the powerful dignitaries, and this would make the suspicious Emperor Wen Hui even more fearful. It was best for Shen Miao to marry a commoner, but at the very least she could not marry a military official. Most likely it was because of this that Shen Miao had not decided on a marriage even at her current age, because if she were to marry a commoner, Shen Xian would definitely feel that his daughter would be wronged. The dignitaries were like this, so the princes would not dare to have any ideas on Shen Miao. It was still better for the crown prince as he was the legitimate heir, but if any of the other princes were to marry Shen Miao, it would be a clear statement of their ambition to fight for the throne. This kind of heavy weight looked like a blessing, but in fact it was a disaster. At the moment in the fight for the throne, the one in the limelight was actually Prince Zhou's faction. Prince Zhou and Prince Jing's consort mother were favored and they had some abilities. Seeing that the power was getting bigger and more followers, if Shen Miao was involved, then Prince Zhou would be pushed to the teeth of the wind and waves. Emperor Wen Hui would definitely be unhappy and the rest of the princes would be jealous. One fear that Prince Zhou would be suppressed miserably. As for the Shen family, there was no need to talk about it. With such a big fanfare, one feared that once the Qin country and the great Liang people leave, the Shen family would die miserably. Killing two birds with one stone, it was done to the point of perfection. Shen Wan's heart suddenly felt timid towards Fu Xiu. This person's mind was too deep and too ruthless, which was somewhat scary. Fu Xiu did not seem to see Shen Wan's expression and smiled gently. "This matter will be handed over to Shen Daren." He did not say how to do it and did not say to what extent. Prince Zhou already had a Zhou Wangfei, so if Shen Miao were to marry over, she could only be a Sofei. Shen Wan did not have any confidence in his heart, but it was not good to show it. He cupped his hands towards Fu Xiu and said, "This official will do my best." Fu Xiuyi's attitude was neither warm nor cold. If it was 2 years ago, Fu Xiuyi's attitude toward Shen Wan would be better, but the present was different from the past. The Shen family was not as good as before and Shen Wan's head was full of lawsuits, so Fu Xiu naturally did not need to value him as much as before. After Shen Wan left the residence of Prince Ding, Pei Lang then walked out from behind the screen. Pei Lang walked to the seat below Fu Xiu and looked at the teacup that Shen Wan left behind after drinking the tea. "Your Highness plans to use Shen Wan." Fu Xiu looked at Pei Lang. "What does gentleman think of Shen Wan?" Pei Lang shook his head. Although he has his ways of enduring, he is not ruthless enough. His family is in a mess. If he were to use him, he would inevitably cause trouble in the future. He can be used in small ways, but not in big ways. Fu Xiu laughed and looked at Pei Lang with eyes full of appreciation. "Gentlemen, and I have the same thoughts." Finishing, he sighed again. Ever since the Xia brothers died, it is not easy to pass some things to others to do. If the Xia brothers had been raised properly, they would have been useful children, but now they have been completely destroyed. Even though they are not important pawns, they still added trouble. Pei Lang frowned. Your Highness does not intend to put Shenwan in an important position. Grass on the wall. Fu Xiuyi's smile was somewhat superficial. In the past he was wavering, but now the situation forced him to seek refuge with me. I do not dare to use this kind of person with an uncertain mind. One only need him to do some small things. Pei Lang said again, let Shenwan think of ways to matchmake the fourth prince and Shen Miao. Does your Highness think it is feasible? Chapter 648. One do not know if it is feasible or not. It is just that since this matter is Shenwan's only chance, he would definitely make it happen at all costs. The Shen family's skills are high and Prince Xiu is the strongest. Now that it has reached a sufficient stage, if one does not take action, one fear that it would really be too late. Pei Lang no longer spoke. But he saw Fu Xiuyi suddenly said, if I were to marry Shen Miao, what does teacher think? Pei Lang's heart jumped fiercely, but his face still had a light and breezy look as he analyzed, one fear that it would not be good and would attract His Majesty's suspicions and also make the rest of the princes fearful. Fu Xiuyi nodded his head and there was some regret in his expression. One could not tell what kind of tone it was in his words. It is a pity. Pei Lang did not understand what Fu Xiuyi was feeling pity about. In terms of feelings, Fu Xiuyi did not seem to have any other feelings for Shen Miao. If there was, he would not be so cold when Shen Miao chased him to the point that the entire Ding capital knew about it. If at that time Fu Xiuyi had any methods of shielding Shen Miao, then the rumors would not be so unscrupulous. What exactly was Fu Xiuyi feeling pity about? Pity that the Shen family's military power was not fated to be in his hands. Pei Lang did not know what the answer was. After Fu Xiuyi left, he also returned to his own room, and when he saw that there was no one else, he then started to write a letter. Tonight the residence of Prince Rui was somewhat austere. The servants all had a dignified expression and did not dare to breathe loudly. Today, when His Highness Prince Rui returned, his expression was very cold, and Gao Yang and Ji Yushu who were beside him also had a rare solemn expression. Tai Yi and Nan Qi brought along a person dressed like a guard and entered the room with Prince Rui. Even the personal study was renovated to be very spacious, and with the addition of some magnificent furnishings, it did not look like a study but had the feeling of a corner of a palace. There was a person sitting on the main seat and was playing with the thumb ring in his hands in boredom. He was wearing a dark purple embroidered robe, and the clothes slowly covered the spacious chair, as if a purple cloud was flowing down from the sky. The person who was kneeling on the ground was prostrating himself. He could only see the boots in front of him. It was a greenish-black deerskin boot with the neatest sewing. The fine and dense sewing did not move at all. The sewing seemed to have silver edges. It was just a boot, but it was enough to show the owner's arrogant and luxurious temperament. Xie Jingxing had one leg on the soft couch and was half leaning on the seat as he looked down at the person below. His eyebrows and eyes were unbelievably handsome. When he smiled, it was as if the entire Garden of Spring could not be blocked. However, when his face was cold, it made people shiver. Those beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to have turned into an icy spring at the peak of a mountain in an instant. He opened his mouth faintly, and his voice was emotionless. Tell me, who is your master? The man gritted his teeth and said nothing. Gao Yang and Ji Yushu also frowned tightly. Xie Jingxing smiled lazily and said, "It is fine if you do not want to say. Throw him into the tower prison." He suddenly bent down and got closer to that guard and said softly, "Anyway, I know who it is." The guard's expression did not change. His body was riddled with scars. It was obvious that he had suffered a lot of torture before this. Xie Jingxing smiled slightly, but the smile did not reach his eyes. He said, "Take his token." Ji Yushu and Gao Yang were startled at the same time and could not help but look at that guard. The guard was startled for a moment before a trace of struggle flashed on his face. Just the word token, it was obvious that Xie Jingxing already knew his identity. Everyone knew that Prince Rui of the Great Liang was ruthless and unscrupulous in his actions, and the tower prison was an existence that made one tremble in fear. Even he would tremble in his heart. The guard steeled his heart and simply knelt down and kowtowed a few times to Xie Jingxing. "Your Highness, have mercy." Chapter 649. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at the other person and sneered, "The people that Imperial older brother sent are just like this." His tone had a deep sense of ridicule. One thought that their bones would be hard. Boring. Ji Yushu could not help but speak. "What does His Majesty want you to do to 5th Shin young lady?" This person was caught at the entrance of the Shin mansion. It was also fortunate that Xie Jingxing had sent his own people to keep a close watch on the Shin mansion to prevent any accidents from happening. This person's martial arts were extremely high and he was also quite vigilant, so Xie Jingxing's people had to wait for a few days before catching him. Now that he thought about it, it was not strange. After all, he was a spy by Emperor Yongli's side. If he did not even have this ability, then the Great Liang imperial family would be in danger. That guard originally wanted to say something, but when he met Xie Jingxing's smiling yet not smiling gaze, he could not help but feel a chill down his spine. One had to know that in the entire imperial family of the Liang dynasty, this lazy and handsome Prince Rui, who always had a casual smile on his face, was the one that should not be provoked. 2 years ago, when he returned to the Great Liang, there were many forces in the imperial court that were secretly playing with each other, but they were all settled by Xie Yuan. Those ministers that were against him were also uprooted and not even their roots were left. His methods were ruthless and his schemes were deep, but the way he did things made it impossible for others to find fault with him. However, other than fighting in the court, he had also done a number of beautiful things, leaving those conservative old ministers speechless. This was the reason why people loved and hated him. Now, under his sharp eyes that could see through everything, the guard did not dare to hide anymore and could only reveal everything. His Majesty knew about 5th Shin young lady's matter and feared that Your Highness was staying in Mingqi because of 5th Shin young lady, so he sent this subordinate to investigate. This subordinate did not want this subordinate to harm 5th Shin young lady, it was all to investigate. Gao Yang's and Ji Yushu's expressions were not good at the same time. Even though Emperor Yongle was in the Great Liang, it did not mean that there were no spies in Mingqi's Ding capital. It was hard to say what would happen after discovering the relationship between Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing. But with Emperor Yongli's personality, he would never allow anything outside of his plan to happen. Shen Miao was after all a Mingqi's person, and this identity would bring about many variables. From Ji Yushu and Gao Yang's point of view, it was not certain that Emperor Yongle would agree with Xie Jingxing's thoughts. However, the most troublesome thing was that these two brothers were equally stubborn. Once they decided on something, they would never change their minds. If Emperor Yongle were to obstruct him, how would Xie Jingxing obediently give in? In addition, as compared to Emperor Yongle, Xie Jingxing had experienced quite a number of assassinations in Mingqi and his temperament was even more unruly. If both brothers were to really fight, one feared that there would be a reign of terror and the sky would turn dark. Sure enough, when Xie Jingxing heard this, he laughed and said, "Oh. Since it is only to investigate, then there is no need to lock you in the tower prison. I will send you back to the Great Liang." The guard was slightly startled, and before he could speak, Xie Jingxing's voice was heard from above, "You know what to say." The guard hesitated for a moment. Prince Rui and Emperor Yongle were equally terrifying existences, and his heart was in despair as he probed, "Does Your Highness and 5th Shin young lady have any relation?" Xie Jingxing looked at him with interest and his beautiful eyes seemed to have some deep meaning. He slowly said, "How can imperial older brother's people lie?" Gao Yang gripped the fan in his hands tightly and Ji Yushu swallowed his saliva. "Go back and tell imperial older brother that he is right. This prince stayed behind because of Shen Miao." The youth's lips hooked up into a gentle smile but his brows were unyielding as he lightly said, "Do not have delusions of changing anything because this prince does not allow it." "Oh right, remember to remind imperial older brother." He yawned, "Do not forget the agreement with this prince." The tranquil night covered up everything. It covered up the undercurrents in the residence of Prince Rui, covered up the schemes in Prince Ding's residence and also covered up the whispers in the general residence. Qiu Shui Yuan had already been taken over by someone and the original mistress returned to her maiden family in a fit of anger and even fought a lawsuit with her husband's family. With this kind of incompatible fire and water, everyone knew that Chen Roqiu would not be able to have her former glory. And this new Yin Yang had gentle and magnanimous brows and even had a child in her tummy. In the future, one feared that she would ascend to heaven. There were not a few servants who stepped on the low and flattered the high, so they immediately turned around to flatter this new master. Chang Zaiqing sat in the room and touched her tummy with a gentle smile hanging on her face. The western courtyard was after all too far away and was somewhat deserted. Old Shenfuren found someone to calculate and found out that the child in Chang Zaiqing's tummy was a son. She immediately provided for Chang Zaiqing and Shenwan even brought Chang Zaiqing to Qiu Shui Yuan so that it would be convenient to take care of her. Chang Zaiqing was already the new female mistress of Qiu Shui Yuan and she was also very satisfied with the current situation. Even though Chen Roqiu's skills were deep, she was after all old and did not give birth to a son, thus she was at a disadvantage in this battle. Shenwan entered the room and put down the tonic in his hands before walking over to Chang Zaiqing's side and touched her tummy before smiling, "Very good." Chang Zaiqing responded with a smile but was suddenly startled before saying softly, "Is there something troubling, master?" Shenwan was startled for a moment before smiling bitterly, "There is really a troublesome matter." Chapter 650. "There is indeed something troubling me," Shenwan answered with a bitter smile. Zhang Zaiqing patted Shenwan's hands and smiled, "If master has any troubles, there is no harm in telling me about it. Perhaps I might be able to help." Shenwan looked at Chang Zaiqing's stomach. Even though he could not see anything at the moment, he still said, "Never mind. It is the proper matter for you to recuperate your body in the residence. There's no need to pay attention to these complicated and trifling matters. Moreover, they're all matters of the imperial court." Zhang Zaiqing was not discouraged and smiled. "Originally, before entering the door, master treated me as a confidant and would always tell me about troubles. Whether it was the trifling matters of the inner court or the affairs of the court, they had never been as distant as they were now. Why are you not as good as you used to be now that you've entered the sect?" She shook her head and said, "I don't only know how to sew clothes and pick flowers in the backyard. Although I'm not the smartest, it's much easier for two people to think of a way than one person. Why don't you tell me about it?" Her gentle words struck a chord in Shenwan's heart. Chang Zaiqing was different from Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu was a real, pampered wife and even though she was gentle and graceful in the past, she would never intervene in Shenwan's career. When Shenwan's career was at its peak, it was good to have such a lovely wife who abided by her duties. But if there were any problems, Chen Roqiu would not be able to help at all in the officialdom. Zhang Zaiqing was different. Before Shenwan had revealed his thoughts to Zhang Zaiqing, he called Zhang Zaiqing as a friend. The two of them talked about everything under the sky. Zhang Zaiqing's knowledge was not short and could occasionally point out the matters of the court, thus Shenwan appreciated her a lot. At this moment, hearing Chang Zaiqing say that, Shenwan's heart suddenly moved slightly. Chang Zai-ching not only had her own views on the matters of the court, the most important thing was that Chang Zai-ching was a female. There were too many twists and turns in how to let Shen Miao marry Prince Zhou. If it was 2 years ago when Shen Miao's temperament had not changed, it would naturally be very easy. As long as he said a few words in front of Shen Miao, he would be able to incite her, but now it was not possible. Moreover, the relationship with the first household was tense, so it was impossible to start from Shen Xian's side. For this kind of marriage, perhaps one would only be able to obtain some gains by asking Chang Zai-ching. Thinking of this, Shen Wan looked at Chang Zai-ching and asked probingly, "If one say that I want Fifth Lady to marry His Highness Prince of Zhou, what do you think should be done?" "His Highness Prince Zhou." Chang Zai-ching was surprised for a moment before asking curiously, "Why let Fifth young lady marry to Prince Zhou?" Shen Wan chuckled, "I just said that casually." Even though he had already treated Chang Zai-ching as his woman, but since he was working for Prince Ding, his mouth must be tight, thus he did not dare to casually reveal this confidential matter. Even if he did not say it, Chang Zai-ching was a smart person and quickly understood. She did not linger on the matter and said, "Fifth Shen young lady is General Shen's beloved daughter and one that he pampers in his palms. Now that His Highness Prince of Zhou already has a Wang Fei, if Fifth Shen young lady were to marry over, at most she would be a Sofei. General Shen and Shen Furen would definitely not agree to it." Shen Wan furrowed his brows and nodded. His expression showed that he was in a dilemma. When Chang Zai-ching saw it, her heart moved slightly. If Shen Miao married to Prince Zhou, no matter what, it would not be a good thing for Shen Miao to be a Sofei. Even though Chang Zai-ching did not understand what Shen Wan's intention was, she was certain that once this matter was successful, Shen Miao would not have a good ending. Thinking of that delicate and pretty young female's pair of clear eyes that seemed to be able to see through one's heart, Chang Zai-ching's heart felt somewhat uneasy. One did not know why, but Chang Zai-ching had an instinctive fear and uneasiness toward Shen Miao, as if Shen Miao's existence would cause her some unpredictable consequences. Chang Zai-ching was also a person who sought stability, thus if Shen Miao could be settled, it might not be a bad thing for her. Chapter 651. Especially. She looked at her lower abdomen. Now that there was a child in her abdomen, the position of the matriarch of the third household of the Shen family was set in stone. Not only must it be set in stone, it must be done well, thus any person or thing that could be a threat should be removed. But it is not that there is no way at all. Chang Zai-ching smiled sweetly. Shen Wan's eyes brightened as he asked, "What methods do you have?" "That would depend on what kind of attitude Master wants Prince Zhou to have." Chang Zai-ching asked, "Does Prince Zhou want to marry or not?" Shen Wan's heart moved. Prince Zhou would definitely not be willing to have this marriage, as the Prince of Ming-chi was not a fool. If he were to marry Shen Miao now, it would undoubtedly be setting up a target for himself. Prince Zhou was not willing to have a relationship with Shen Miao, but Fu Xiuyi's aim was to make it seem that Prince Zhou wanted to have this marriage with Shen Miao. He said, Prince Zhou would definitely not be willing, but one must let others think that Prince Zhou is willing. Chang Zai-ching thought about it and said, "This is somewhat difficult. But females have always cherished their reputation, and if one's reputation was ruined, one would not have anything to rely on for the rest of one's life. I think that if Master wants to be the matchmaker, there is no harm in starting from fifth young lady." Shen Wan saw Chang Zai-ching's confident look and asked, "There is no harm in speaking. Shen Furen and General Shen are not willing for fifth young lady to be a side consort. In this world, there is no worst and only worse. If there is a worse ending than fifth young lady being a side consort, General Shen and Shen Furen would definitely take a step back and choose to let fifth young lady marry Prince Zhou." Shen Wan's heart moved. He heard Chang Zai-ching continuing to speak, "As for something worse than being a side consort, there are many. For example, being kidnapped by bandits, being tainted by hooligans, or not knowing who the adulterer is. Under this kind of suppression, one would suddenly get a piece of news. That person might be Prince Zhou. No matter if it is Prince Zhou or not, General Shen and Shen Furen would choose Prince Zhou because this is the best one and also the one that can protect 5th Shen young lady. Chang Sai-ching did not say it very clearly, but smart people would only say 70 to 80%. In a blink of an eye, Shen Wan understood 70 to 80% and felt that everything was clear in front. Chang Sai-ching smiled as she touched her lower abdomen and smiled gently. It is just that these are all sinister methods. If one did not see Master frowning, I would not have said these words. Shen Wan had obtained this wonderful plan, so how would he feel that Chang Sai-ching's method was sinister? At the moment he felt that he had picked up a treasure. Chang Sai-ching was able to get a son in one stroke and was smart enough to solve his current problem. He immediately kissed Chang Sai-ching's cheek and said with a smile, "With such a beauty, how would I dare to frown?" After saying that, he stood up again, as if he couldn't wait to do something, and said, "I still have some matters to attend to, I'll come see you later." Chang Sai-ching naturally complied gently. After Shen Wan left, Zhao Mama, who was by Chang Sai-ching's side, walked over and said with some worry, "Third Master is going to deal with 5th Shen young lady?" "Perhaps." Chang Sai-ching smiled. It is not the first time that the first and third household of the Shen family are at odds. "Miss, are you planning to help Third Master deal with 5th Miss?" Zhao Mama asked. "There is still General Shen above 5th young lady. Will anything happen to Miss doing this? This matter was not done by me, so how can it be counted on me?" Chang Sai-ching's smile did not change. As long as Shen Wan is not a fool, he would not be easily caught by others. Moreover, if something really happened, the Shen family would be busy dealing with Shen Miao's rumors, so how would they have the mind to care about other things? Zhao Mama was still not assured. Why would young lady help Third Master deal with 5th young lady? Chapter 652. To come up with strategies for one's husband is what a proper matriarch should do. One must let him feel that I am different from Chen Roqiu. Let him feel that I am able to do the things that Chen Roqiu is able to do and that I am able to do the things that Chen Roqiu is unable to do, then he would not be able to leave me. Chang Sai-ching caressed her lower abdomen and narrowed her eyes. Moreover, I have a premonition that if one does not remove Shen Miao, one fear that it would bring about a big disaster. When Zhao Mama heard this, she jumped in shock and did not say anything more. Chang Sai-ching changed the topic of conversation, speaking of which, is there any news from the Lu province? Zhao Mama said, the people that were sent are on the way and no matter how fast they travel, they would still need a few days, so they should be back in a few days. Let them arrange things properly. A trace of coldness flashed in Chang Sai-ching's eyes. My past cannot be known to anyone. Shen Miao received a letter from Pei Lang that night. In the letter, it said that Fu Xiuyi actually let Shen Wan think of ways to let her marry Prince Zhou. Jing Zhe and Gu Yut saw that Shen Miao's expression was not good and thought that something happened, so they asked, "Did young lady encounter something bad?" Shen Miao shook her head, but her heart was secretly vigilant. In the past and present lifetime, Fu Xiuyi had the same calculations. No matter if she could marry Prince Zhou or not, as long as she was involved with Prince Zhou, the Shen family and Prince Zhou would not have a good time. The Shen family had angered Emperor Wenhui and made Emperor Wenhui feel that the Shen family supported Prince Zhou and wanted to secretly take a side in the fight for the heir apparent. As for Prince Zhou, he was the target of public criticism. Without using a single soldier, he was able to remove two potential dangers for Fu Xiuyi. Fu Xiuyi really had a good calculation. As for her rather capable third shoe, he wanted to tie her and Prince Zhou together. Needless to say, he would definitely use some methods that could not be seen in public. As Shen Miao thought about it, she could not help but sneer in her heart. No matter how long it was, the third household of the Shen family could use the first household's people without any scruples. If it was possible to use the entire first household as a stepping stone for glory and wealth. Such intentions were to be put to death. She said, "Let Mo Qing come in." Jing Zhe went outside to call Mo Qing over. Shen Miao asked Mo Qing, "Have you found the person that I asked you to investigate in the Lu province?" Mo Qing cupped his hands and said, replying to young lady, the Lu province's people had already replied and seemed to have found the person. However, there is another group of people who are also trying to find out the whereabouts of the father and son. I heard that they have issued a Jianghu order, regardless of whether they are dead or alive. Shen Miao suddenly laughed out, but no matter how one looked at that smile, there was some coldness in it. Chang Zaiqing is really ruthless. Regardless of life or death, the people that Shen Miao asked Mo Qing to find were Chang Zaiqing's husband and son, and now other than Chang Zaiqing, who else would be chasing after that pair of father and son? Now that Chang Zaiqing had clung on to Shen Gui, she even wanted to kill her own husband and son to prevent future troubles. It was no wonder that she could walk so far in the previous lifetime. Just this kind of ruthlessness was something that many people could not compare to. Send someone to inform the people in the Lu province to protect them father and son and bring them back to the Ding capital as soon as possible. Shen Miao said. Mo Qing nodded his head. Shen Miao suddenly thought of something and said, "Wait." She said, "Help me bring a letter to Manager Ji of Feng Xian Pawn Shop." The lawsuit between the Shen and Chen family was really long and lingering. Many people thought that the case had been settled for a long time, but upon asking, it was not over yet. Almost 2 whole months had passed before this case came to an end. Chen Roqiu was indeed jealous of having no son, and in addition to old Shen Furen saying that Chen Roqiu did not treat her with respect, at the end Shen Wan still gave Chen Roqiu a divorce letter. This marriage that was initially praised by everyone as a talented man and beautiful woman, a celestial couple that others envied, actually ended in such a farce. And the most ruthless thing about Shen Wan was that after divorcing Chen Roqiu, he quickly promoted Chang Zaiqing as a noble concubine. Chapter 653. But even so, this lawsuit was a lose-lose situation for both parties. Shen Wan's career was hindered and the residents also spent a lot of money. It was just that in comparison, the Qin family was obviously more miserable. The Qin family had some reputation, but because they were a scholarly family, they did not have much money. Old Master Qin initially fought this lawsuit because he did not want others to look down on the Qin family, but he did not expect that this lawsuit would go on for so long. After fighting for a full 2 months, it was not an exaggeration to say that the Qin family was bankrupt. Because of this, old Master Chen's vitality was greatly damaged and blamed everything on Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu's mother also had some complaints. Chen Roqiu was originally hurt by Shen Wan and hated that Shen Wan did not care about old feelings and was also angry that Chang Zaiqing was two-faced. The saddest thing was that there was still no news of Shen Yu, and now that she was despised by her own parents, she felt that all her hopes were in tatters and was almost at the end of despair. What she did not know was that the daughter that she could not find was currently in the residence of the Qin prince in Yanqing Lane. In the residence of the Qin prince, Shen Yu was dressing up in front of a mirror. The clothes that she wore were of the best quality. Even though the Shen family was a wealthy official family, it could not be compared to the fabrics in the Qin country's imperial palace. The jewelry that she wore was also very luxurious. She was covered in silk and looked like a different person from the past. If one were to say that the Shen Yu in the past followed Chen Roqiu's instructions and dressed up elegantly and was not bothered by the vulgar gold and silver, now her appearance looked much more expensive. Naturally, it was because Shen Yu had become Huangfu House concubine. The maid by her side carefully served hot tea to Xinyu, but Xinyu's expression was somewhat impatient. She had a pretty face, and under Qiu's daily nurturing, she could be said to be gentle and understanding. Moreover, she could see that Huang Fuhao had some interest in Xinyu, so she picked out topics related to Xinyu. One day, Huang Fuhao frivolously asked her if she was willing to be his concubine. Xinyu thought for a night and agreed the next day. She did not have any other way out. The news spread like wildfire. The lawsuit between the Xin family and the Qin family had almost become a joke. Zhang Ziqing was pregnant, and if she gave birth to a son, one feared that this daughter would be thrown to the back of the Xin family's head. Even if it was not a son, because Chen Roqiu caused Xinwan to be pointed at, Xinwan and old Xin Furen would hate her. Her name had already been occupied by Xin Dongling, and these days there were rumors that the Minister of Lands Wang Bai doted on his lovely wife, Xinyu. The more it was said, the more Xinyu's heart was filled with regret and unwillingness. No matter if she really liked Wang Bai or not, as long as she thought that the comfortable life that Xin Dongling was living now should have been hers, Xinyu's heart was extremely unreconciled. She hated Xinwan for being heartless and also hated Chen Roqiu for not living up to expectations. And now she understood that based on her current self, it was even more impossible to get close to Fu Xiuyi. If she were to return to the Xin family, Xinwan might be angry with Chen Roqiu and arrange a shoddy marriage for her. Xinyu also had the unique coldness of the Xin family in her bones. Xinwan and her had been father and daughter for so many years, and at the beginning they were happy and affectionate, but now, Xinyu's gaze toward Xinwan was even more vigilant than outsiders. Xinyu thought that rather than being married to an unknown family, it was better to be Huang Fuhao's concubine. Huang Fuhao was handsome and young and was also the crown prince of the Qin country. If in the future she was favored by Huang Fuhao, perhaps she could be promoted. The most important thing was that if she could borrow Huang Fuhao's power, perhaps she could protect herself and Chen Roqiu. Thus Xinyu became Huang Fuhao's concubine. Chapter 654. In all fairness, Huang Fuhao treated Xinyu well, and naturally Xinyu deliberately fawned on him. But currently in Mingqi, Xinyu was the most favored one among all the concubines that Huang Fuhao brought. Perhaps Huang Fuhao also enjoyed the taste of a daughter of an official being his concubine and was very greedy for novelty. Xinyu asked the servant beside her, "Has the letter for the Qin family been delivered?" The servant said, "It is already on the way and should be arriving soon." Xinyu unhappily drank a mouthful of tea. Chen Roqiu received a letter. She did not know who sent this letter to her room. The Qin family's master and Furen did not want to see Chen Roqiu, as Chen Roqiu had hurt the Qin family's strength and the public money had decreased by a lot. Older brother and sister-in-law saw her as a troublemaker, thus Chen Roqiu's days were not good and she simply stayed in the room all day and did not go out. She looked around but didn't see anyone. Curious, she opened the envelope and a letter fell out. As soon as she opened the letter, she was stunned at first sight. The handwriting on the letter was very clear to Chen Roqiu as it was Xinyu's handwriting. Xinyu's calligraphy was the only copy of the calligraphy master Wang Furen that Chen Roqiu had specially found for her. Xinyu's strength was soft and she was able to learn most of Wang Furen's handwriting, but she did not have enough strength so Chen Roqiu could tell with one glance that it was Xinyu's handwriting. She quickly sized up the surroundings, and when she saw that there was no one else in the room, she then boldly opened it. The top only said to meet her at a somewhat isolated inn in the eastern part of the city, and there was no signature, but Chen Roqiu understood in her heart that it was Xinyu who secretly arranged to meet her. The stone in Chen Roqiu's heart was put down. Xinyu could still write a letter to her, and looking at the unhurried handwriting, it was obvious that she was still safe. The original worries were swept away and Chen Roqiu slowly calmed down. These days the blows came one after another and it made her somewhat flustered and unable to socialize and felt that life was hopeless. But Xinyu's letter seemed to light up her hope. With a daughter, Chenrochio's heart was suddenly filled with fighting spirit. At least she was not alone, so why could a person like Chang Xiqing enter the room and snatch what belonged to her? Chang Xiqing wanted to give birth to a son for Xinwan. She wanted to see if Chang Xiqing had this ability. With a backbone, Chenrochio gradually calmed down. In the following day, the servants around discovered that the haggard and irritable Chang Xiqing seemed to be in a better mood, as if she had returned to the gentle and graceful third Shenfuren of the past. Even when the servants collided with her, Chenrochio only laughed it off. If an astute person were to look, they would discover that in Chenrochio's eyes, there seemed to be a renewed fighting spirit that could not be extinguished. Early in the morning the next day, Chenrochio went out. No one from the Chen family stopped her. Madame Chen was a little worried, but she didn't say anything after old Master Chen glared at her. Chenrochio's older brother and sister-in-law were even more dismissive. If it was in the past, Chenrochio would quarrel with the few sister-in-law, but today she was not in the mood. She was wearing an unassuming brown short skirt. The skirt was of an old style from a few years ago, worn by Madame Chen when she was young. When she came out from the Shen residence, she was not able to get a single cent of silver, and because she was in a fit of pique, she only took the jewelry and did not even bring much clothes out. Afterwards she was busy with the lawsuit and did not have the time to buy it. At the moment, the Chen family could not even afford to buy it. Wearing unfitting and outdated clothes, Chenrochio could only suppress the humiliation in her heart. She was wearing a bamboo hat and others could not see her appearance, but even if they were to see it, one feared that they would not be able to link this shabbily dressed and haggard-looking woman with the talented female that everyone in the Ding capital applauded. Chapter 655. In order to save money, Chenrochio could only hire an old horse carriage. When the horse carriage reached the east of the city, Chenrochio paid the money and quickly walked towards the inn that was mentioned in the letter. Upon entering the inn, Chenrochio looked around and did not see Xinyu's figure. Just as she was feeling suspicious in her heart, a waiter walked towards her and glanced at her before asking, "Is Furen looking for a young lady?" Chenrochio was startled for a moment before nodding her head. Now that the entire Ding capital knew about the lawsuit between her and Xinwan, she was somewhat guilty and feared that she would be recognized and pointed at. She was even more afraid that Xinyu would be discovered. That waiter said, "Furen, please follow me." The waiter brought Chenrochio to a room on the upper floor of the inn and stopped at the door before smiling, "The person that Furen is waiting for is inside." Then he left by himself. Chenrochio pushed the door open and saw a young female sitting at the table in the room. No matter how Chenrochio recognized that back view, who else could it be other than Xinyu? Chenrochio closed the door and cried out involuntarily, "Where?" Xinyu turned her head over and could not help but be startled when she saw Chenrochio's appearance. It was until Chenrochio went forward to hold her hands that Xinyu could see Chenrochio's face clearly before calling out, "Mother." But then she frowned. "How did you become like this?" If one did not see it with one's own eyes, Xinyu would not believe that this sloppily dressed and simple female would be her noble, gentle and generous mother. When Chenrochio heard it, a trace of resentment flashed across her face and she gritted her teeth. "If it was not for that slut Xiqing and your heartless father, how would I end up like this?" Finishing, she looked at Xinyu anxiously. Where have you been these days? Do you know that mother's heart is very anxious? Are you all right? Did something happen?" Chenrochio only had Xinyu as a daughter and normally she would be pampered and loved, so the concern at the moment was not fake. When Xinyu heard it, she felt somewhat sad, but her face was still smiling. "Mother, do not be afraid. I am living very well now." I have found a backer that is even nobler than Wang Qian. With this backer, the Shen family will not dare to bully us in the future. Chen Roqiu asked suspiciously, "Who are you talking about?" Shen Yu hesitated for a while before saying, "His Highness the Crown Prince of the Qin country." Chen Roqiu cried out in surprise, only to hear Shen Yu quickly continuing to explain, "His Highness the Crown Prince treats me very well. At the beginning when I left the Shen family, it was His Highness the Crown Prince who saved me. After that, he wanted to send me back, but the Shen family was in trouble, so I stayed in the Crown Prince's residence. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is a good person. Mother, don't feel bad about it. I'm really following His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. It's much better than following those people of the Wang clan who say one thing but mean another. I can't be on equal footing with Shen Dongling, right? If I return to the Shen family, grandmother and father are already dissatisfied with me. Who knows how they will betroth me? Mother, can you just listen to me this once?" Chen Roqiu instinctively felt that it was not good, but after hearing that Huangfu House saved Shen Yu, her expression slightly eased. But at the end the other party was not a person of Ming Qi. Even if Chen Roqiu did not understand the affairs of the court, she had been influenced by Shen Wan for so many years and had a basic vigilance. He is after all a person of the Qin country, moreover he is the crown prince. Seeing that Chen Roqiu still did not agree, Shen Yu's heart hardened and simply lied. His Highness the Crown Prince said that in the future when he returns to the Qin country, he will bestow me with a new identity and let me become his Sufei. Is this true? Chen Roqiu was surprised for a moment. If Shen Yu were to leave Ming Qi and become the Sufei of the Crown Prince's residence in the Qin country, in the future she would be able to enjoy endless glory and splendor. After experiencing Shen Wan's matter, Chen Roqiu's current thinking was different from before. What was the use of feelings? Feelings were too illusory. When the flowers are in bloom and the moon is round, one would be intimate, but in the blink of an eye, one would be treated coldly. And those smelly silver, riches and splendor that were mentioned in the books were the things that one could really rely on. Without money, the Qin family could mock and ridicule this daughter of theirs. If their family had a Sufei of the Crown Prince. Chen Roqiu's heart slowly warmed up. Absolutely true. Shen Yu said. Chen Roqiu hesitated for a moment before saying, "Let this matter be discussed in the future. There is still one more matter at hand." Shen Yu asked, "What matter?" "Chang Sai-ching, that slut, schemed against me behind my back, saying one thing in front of me and another behind my back. I fell into her trap. Now I have become a street rat, but the person I hate the most is not Chang Sai-ching but your father. If it was not for your father's protection, how would I end up like this? He did not even put the past decades of husband and wife relationship in his eyes and let them live a good life with a clear conscience. I am not reconciled. I hate." Chapter 656. I am not reconciled. I hate. Chen Roqiu's words were filled with deep hatred. Now her face was haggard, and when she said those words, her expression was so ferocious that even Shen Yu jumped in shock. Shen Yu said, "Mother, what are you talking about? You have also seen the matter." Chen Roqiu gritted her teeth. "Your father and I can be considered to have congenial feelings for each other and have seen everything for so many years. I treat him wholeheartedly and never thought that he would guard me and live alone, but he cannot find someone to humiliate me. Even if he chased me out, he would still go against the Qin family in court. Now that the Qin family's luck is badly damaged, the Qin family would look at me with all kinds of ridicule. It is your father and Chang Sai-ching that forced me to such a desperate situation. What is my reputation in the Ding capital? A hen that cannot lay eggs. A jealous woman. This is what your father is repaying me with." As Chen Roqiu spoke, she sneered and said, "And that old fart, after marrying into the Qin family, she always pick on me. Isn't it because she herself is a third-rate female singer, so she cannot see others doing well? This time the matter between Chang Zaiqing and your father was also pushed by her behind the scenes. Those people in the Qin family are all not good things. Shen Yu could not help but frown as she felt that Chen Rochio's words were like a shrew scolding the streets, but speaking of the Qin family, until now Shen Yu did not feel anything. Sure enough, following that, Chen Rochio looked at her and said, "In the beginning when your father wanted you to marry into the Wang family, I thought that you clearly liked someone else in your heart, but your father coaxed me and said that only the Wang family could protect you, so I could only agree. Who knows what kind of people the Wang family is? To actually not acknowledge you because of Shen Dongling, and now you do not even have your own identity. It is really too much of a bully. If your father had half a bit of consideration for the father-daughter relationship, one think that he would stand up for you, but look at what your father did. He actually wanted you to apologize to the Wang family and even want to be on equal footing with Shen Dongling. Why is it that you, the dignified young lady of the Shen family, have to be on equal footing with a Shu daughter? This is simply the biggest joke in the world. Does he even see you as his own daughter?" Chen Rochio's words were full of provocation. Currently Chen Rochio had nothing and there was no one standing on her side. It was not easy to find a daughter and she feared that Shen Yu would be coaxed back by Shen Wan's few words, then she would really be alone. If Shen Yu was still with her, Chen Rochio would at least have something to think about. When Shen Yu heard it, her expression sank. Speaking of which, it wasn't that there wasn't any father-daughter relationship between her and Shen Wan, but what she hated the most about the Shen family was that they had used her marriage as a raft, causing her to be unable to return home. It was said that it was for her own good, but Shen Yu had only suffered. Even though Huang Fu Hao treated her well, she was after all a concubine. A concubine. Even if it was the crown prince's concubine, it was still the lowest level of concubine and could be casually thrown away like a plaything. In addition to Chen Rochio mentioning that there was someone else in her heart, thinking that there was no possibility at all with Fu Xiu-yi, she sighed sadly, "Mother, don't talk about these useless things anymore. It is impossible for His Highness Prince Ding and I have never thought about him in this lifetime. Most likely we are not fated to be together." She then smiled bitterly, "Moreover His Highness the Crown Prince treats me very well and I also like him very much." Chen Rochio understood her daughter the most, so how could she not see the disappointment in Shen Yu's heart? She was angry and distressed, and even hated Fu Xiu-yi. Her own daughter was so good, so why could she not obtain the love of her heart? She took a deep breath and said, "The Shen family harmed us mother and daughter to this extent, so it must not be that simple. Do not worry, mother will definitely vent for us mother and daughter. Not a single person from the Shen family will be able to escape. Since I have been divorced and returned to my maiden family, there is no longer any relationship with the Shen family. Even if something happens to the Shen family, they will not be able to find it on my head. Now that you no longer have the identity of Shen Yu, you will definitely be safe." Chapter 657. "Mother, what do you want to do?" Shen Yu heard something wrong in Chen Rochio's words and asked worriedly. Chen Rochio sneered and replied, "Just wait and see. I came over just to inform you. Seeing that you are fine, mother will be at ease." Shen Yu could not ask anything from Chen Rochio and could only give up helplessly, but she ignored the flash of ruthlessness in Chen Rochio's eyes. After a few more days, the Ding capital seemed to have calmed down. Nothing new happened. It was just that it was almost the end of the year, and the people on the streets were getting busy. Naturally everyone in the Shen mansion started to buy New Year's goods and Luo Tan was still very happy. It was just that ever since the last incident, Shen Xian did not allow both of them to go out easily. If they were to go out, they would definitely bring along a bunch of guards, which was somewhat boring. Moreover, Feng and Ning was also feeling guilty about the previous incident, and after apologizing, one did not know if it was because of once bitten by a snake, twice shy, that she did not ask both of them out anymore. Luo Tan was also very bored in the residence, and after that she was so bored that she followed Luo Ling and Shin Qiu to the training grounds to watch the soldiers train. She dressed up as a male, and with Shin Xian and Luo Ling by her side, there was no need to be afraid. Shin Miao, on the other hand, quietly stayed in the room. She did not like to be lively and did not like to go shopping. Staying alone was the most reassuring thing. On this day, Mo Qing came back from outside to say that Zhang Ziqing's husband and son had been brought to the Ding capital. Because they had to keep it a secret, they didn't dare to casually bring it into the mansion. Instead, they settled it in a private house in the east of the city. Shin Miao said, "You did very well." She remembered that in her previous lifetime, Zhang Ziqing's husband was a gambling addict and scoundrel. Because he was a drunkard, he was somewhat rough. If this kind of person were to be contaminated with the Shin mansion and have other thoughts in the future, he would be like a sticky candy, and it would take a lot of effort to clean him up. Moreover, who knew if there were people in the Shin residence monitoring the Shin mansion every day? If they were to see this father and son pair, one feared that there would be more trouble. Mo Qing repeatedly said that he did not dare and asked Shin Miao, "When does young lady plan to see them father and son?" For Shin Miao to bring both father and son to the Ding capital, there must be a use for it. Before that, he would definitely meet with the other party for a chat. Just as Shin Miao was about to answer, she suddenly thought of something and paused. In Pei Lang's letter, Fu Xiuyi gave Shinwan a difficult problem, which was to marry himself to Prince Zhou. What method did Shinwaning use? Even though Shin Miao was not very clear, she could more or less guess that it was nothing more than some dirty tricks. Thus, when one stepped out of the Shin mansion's door, there might be danger lurking everywhere outside. These days were calm and peaceful. Perhaps it was because she had not gone out at all. If she had gone out, perhaps the other party would not have given up this opportunity. She wasn't so careless as to jump into a pit of fire even though she knew it was a trap. Moreover, if she was related to the Tian family, she wouldn't be able to get away with just a few words. Shin Miao asked, "How many experts like you are there in the residence?" Mo Qing was surprised for a moment before frowning. Eldest young master should still have some subordinates and master should also have some subordinates. Adding them up, there should not be more than 30 people. Mo Qing was indeed a top expert and there were very few people like him. With 30 people protecting him, probably no one would dare to do anything to him. But this way, he would be too conspicuous on the streets. It would be strange if no one noticed him. Moreover, to suddenly have so many guards following, Shin Qiu and Shin Xian were not fools. Shin Miao shook her head, understood. Is young lady worried about safety on the road? Mo Qing asked, at that time one can send more manpower. Mo Qing also felt that it was somewhat strange as Shin Miao was never a timid person. Today's matter was somewhat abnormal. Chapter 658. No need. I know what to do. You go down first. Shin Miao said. Mo Qing no longer spoke and silently retreated. Shin Miao looked around and her eyes landed on the half-open window in the room and her heart suddenly moved. She instructed Guyu, open the window even more. Guyu was surprised, young lady, it is still windy outside. Be careful not to catch a cold when you open the window. She really felt that it was very strange. When Shin Miao was young, her body was very afraid of the cold, but she did not know why these days she seemed to like to sleep with the windows open at night. But now that it was still broad daylight, why did she still need to open the window? I am not cold. Shin Miao calmly said, go and open it. Guyu looked at Shen Miao's thick outer clothes but did not dare to refute and opened the window in confusion. For the entire day, Shen Miao stayed in the room and she would glance at the window from time to time, causing Jingzhe and Guyu to also look at the window. They thought that there would be some flowers blooming but there was clearly nothing on the windowsill. Shen Miao read for a while and then walked to the windowsill to stand for a while. One did not know what she was looking at. Unknowingly, the sky turned dark. After having dinner and freshening up, Jingzhe and Guyu both withdrew. Shen Miao cut the oil lamp again and did not know how many times she had cut it. She only felt that it was quiet outside, as if the entire Ding capital had fallen into a deep sleep and the window was still empty. A trace of disappointment flashed in Shen Miao's eyes and she used the chess pieces on the table to knock on the oil lamp in boredom. The little pieces of the lamp fell on the table and quickly disappeared. Shen Miao gradually felt sleepy and closed her eyes as she laid on the table to take a nap. When Xie Jingxing entered the room, he saw the scene of Shen Miao sleeping soundly on the table. The window was not closed and the door was specially left open for him. The light from the lamp was slightly swaying due to him bringing the cold wind in. Shen Miao used her hands as a pillow and buried her head in her arms as she slept peacefully. He walked to Shen Miao's side and looked at Shen Miao. He paused for a moment before taking off his cloak and gently covering Shen Miao's body. Shen Miao was after all a vigilant person and when he moved, her body moved slightly to the side. She raised her head but did not open her eyes as she said in a daze, "Xiao Li Zi, massage Bengong's shoulders." Xie Jingxing, he simply leaned against the cabinet at the side and looked at Shen Miao. He laughed and said, "Hey, did you dream of being an empress again?" This abrupt sentence made Shen Miao wake up abruptly and coincidentally a gust of cold wind blew in from outside. She sneezed and in a moment she was no longer sleepy. Xie Jingxing walked to the window and closed it, making the room much warmer. He crossed his arms and leaned against the window, asking, "Why are you sleeping here?" Shen Miao looked at the purple-clothed youth, rubbed her eyes and asked, "Why are you only here now?" There was a hint of reproach in her words. She had probably just woken up from her sleep and her mind was not very clear, so she did not realize that there was anything wrong with her words. However, Xie Jingxing noticed it. There was a moment of silence in the room as he walked forward step by step until he reached the table where Shen Miao was sitting. He placed his hands on the table and leaned over to ask, "Are you waiting for me?" Shen Miao recovered to her senses and quickly replied, "No." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up and his tone was somewhat regretful. "Oh, heard that you waited for me in front of the window for an entire day. So it was not true. Since there is nothing, then I will leave." Finishing, he made a move to leave. "Wait!" Shen Miao called out to him. Xie Jingxing said, "What is it? If you know, then why are you still asking me?" Shen Miao gritted her teeth. Facing Xie Jingxing, she really could not use any calmness and magnanimity because this person was exceptionally vile. Thinking about it, her actions outside the window today was too deliberate. Xie Jingxing most likely had arranged people in the Shen mansion and it was not strange for him to return and report to Xie Jingxing after seeing her like that. It was just that Xie Jingxing clearly knew and still deliberately asked, which was too vile. Chapter 659. I'm waiting for you. I need your help with something. She took a deep breath and said, "Speak." Xie Jingxing pulled out a chair and sat opposite Shen Miao. He seemed to be in a very good mood, and even his beautiful peach blossom eyes were more charming than usual. There should be quite a number of capable people under you and there should also be quite a number of experts. There should be quite a number of people like my guard Mo Qing. Shen Miao asked probingly. That kind of person is considered an expert? Xie Jingxing sneered, why don't I send you a few true experts? Lend it to me for a few people to use. Shen Miao said, I will pay. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at her and slightly frowned, what do you want to do? Shen Miao thought that since Xie Jingxing already knew about the matter of Chang Ziqing's husband and son, there was no need to hide it from him. Chang Ziqing's husband and son in the Lu province have already been brought over to the Ding capital and arranged at a place in the east of the city. One fear that the people around me are not enough. You want to use my people? Shen Miao said, I will pay. Xie Jingxing asked, do I look like I lack money? Shen Miao was silent. Indeed, Xie Jingxing did not look like he lacked money, it was as if he had so much money that he could not use it all and could almost help the world. Even the richest person in Ming Qi would not be able to spend as much as him. She simply asked, what do I have to do for you to agree? Xie Jingxing narrowed his eyes, do you always have this attitude when you ask for help? Shen Miao finally got annoyed and said, forget it. Take it that I did not say anything about this matter. It is already late, Your Highness Prince Rui, please. When she was angry, she would call Xie Jingxing as Your Highness Prince Rui, and it sounded very distant. As expected, Xie Jingxing frowned and looked unhappy. I did not say that you are not allowed to use it. Xie Jingxing called out to her, what is the hurry? Shen Miao sat back down again and Xie Jingxing's beautiful eyes stared at her. His eyes slightly flashed but he said, say that you are stupid, you are really stupid. Why is there a need to give up what is near and seek what is far? What do you mean? This prince is in a good mood today. Xie Jingxing said unhurriedly, I will personally accompany you. In the middle of the night, the moon disappeared, leaving only a few stars hanging sparsely in the night sky. Because it was winter, the weather was unusually cold. There was a thin layer of snow on the ground, but when one stepped on it, the sound of ice shards could be heard. However, because it was New Year's Eve, every household hung bright red lanterns under their eaves. The lanterns were red, and the snow was white. It was a very interesting scene. At this moment, there were two people standing under the eaves. The tall young man was bending down slightly, tying a scarf around the face of another person beside him. The two of them were very close, and if they came closer, they could hear the short girl complaining, why do I have to wear this? Sure, the young man whispered in her ear, just take it as you're afraid that your peerless beauty will cause trouble if others see it. Don't ask too much. Shen Miao sneered, peerless beauty. Then you should block yourself first. There's no need for me. The young man had a handsome face and did not seem to notice the sarcasm in the other person's words. He said indifferently, my power is monstrous, and no one dares to find trouble with me. Shen Miao. Shen Miao did not think that after telling Xie Jingxing about the Lu province father and son matter, Xie Jingxing would personally accompany her, and it was actually now. In the middle of the night, one feared that the father and son would be asleep, and Xie Jingxing actually wanted to do it at this time. But Xie Jingxing's reason was that there were fewer people at night, and even if there was someone accompanying during the day, what if no one discovered it? What he said was too reasonable, and Shen Miao could not find any words to refute, but she did not expect that when Xie Jingxing said it, the two of them directly walked on the street. Chapter 660. Although it looked like there was no one on the street, it was hard to avoid feeling uneasy. What's there to be afraid of? My people are following. If there's anything wrong, they'll warn you. Xie Jingxing said. In the time that Shen Miao was distracted, Xie Jingxing had already tied the scarf on her face, revealing only a pair of eyes. Her eyes were round and watery, the black and white of her eyes distinct and clear. Under the dim light of the lantern, she looked even more adorable. Xie Jingxing helped her put on the hat and raised his eyebrows, not bad. In order to avoid complications, Shen Miao finally found a set of manservant's clothes to wear. The hat was somewhat inappropriate as it often covered her eyes. It was just that she had forgotten to bring her cloak when she came out. Xie Jingxing looked at her for a moment before covering Shen Miao with his cloak and said, "Let's go." Just like that. Shen Miao was extremely surprised. The east of the city is not far. Xie Jingxing disapprovingly said, "It is also good to walk around. You have not seen the Ding capital at night, right?" Shen Miao was silent. Most of the nights that she had seen were within the square palace walls of Mingqi. Sometimes she would sit in the huge Kuan-Ning palace and think about the annoying matters in the inner palace. Once she sat, it would be the entire night. Sometimes she would go to the imperial garden to stroll and see Fu Xiu-yi and different beauties talking and laughing. As the head of the 6 palaces, it seemed that her nights were like one night for 10 years, lonely, unfree, cold, and unnoticed by others. She had also regretted and envied the carefree life outside the palace. Xie Jingxing said, "No one here sees you and knows you. Do what you want to do." Shen Miao looked at the other person's handsome brows and suddenly felt some envy in her heart. Speaking of which, Xie Jingxing was able to live till now. He was the little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Linan and also the younger brother of the great Liang's Emperor Yonglu, Prince Rui. Everyone could only see the glory on the surface, but the things that he carried were definitely not lesser than Shen Miao. However, his prideful and arrogant nature seemed to have never changed. Nothing external could change his strength. It was as if no matter how the sun and moon changed and how the stars moved, he would still stand there in an unshakable manner. One could only look up to him. Shen Miao envied people with strong hearts. She felt that she was not as strong as Xie Jingxing because she would occasionally think of Wan Yu and Fu Ming and the various things in the past lifetime and would feel tired. Xie Jingxing's eyes were sharp as he pinched her chin and asked, "What is wrong with you?" Shen Miao broke free from his hand and turned her head, "Nothing." She did not want others to know the emotions in her heart, so she turned and walked 2 steps, but she was not used to wearing a man's boots and the ground was slippery because of the ice, so she almost fell down. Luckily Xie Jingxing grabbed her arm and frowned as he reprimanded, "Be careful." But the hand in his sleeve slid down and grabbed Shen Miao's hand. His hand was slender and cold, but it was just nice to wrap Shen Miao's hand in his palm. Shen Miao's heart moved and subconsciously wanted to break free, but she did not expect that Xie Jingxing's grip was so tight that she was unable to break free. Xie Jingxing said faintly, "I will hold you so that you will not slip." "I will be careful and not slip." Shen Miao said. "Then I'm afraid I'll slip." "You hold my hand," he continued without even frowning. Shen Miao. Heavy snow covered the entire street and it was as if the street was silvery white and the lanterns reflected the lovely rain and snow. Shen Miao would look up at the sky from time to time. The sky was very good and very spacious, much better looking than the squarish sky. The street was very quiet and no one would discover her. Some wishes that were not fulfilled in her previous lifetime were fulfilled at this moment. Her palm, which was held by the young man beside her, was slightly damp, but a smile gradually appeared on her face. Chapter 661. The night was really nice, Shen Miao thought. But she did not see that in the eyes of the handsome youth, there was a flash of a smile that was more moving than fireworks. In a house in the east of the city, there was a loud snoring sound coming from one of the rooms. The entire room was filled with the strong smell of alcohol that was pungent to the nose. There were several jars of wine lying on the floor, and the man on the bed was sleeping soundly. In the room next door, there was an 8 or 9-year-old child lying on the bed. This room was obviously much narrower than the room next door. After lying down for a while, he sat up. As if disturbed by the snoring next door, he stood up and walked to the small courtyard surrounded by bamboo fences with a blanket draped over him. The child had gone to the latrine and was about to return to his room when he caught a glimpse of two people standing in the courtyard. He was so startled that he was about to cry out, but he saw the taller person flicking a stone at him. In an instant, the child was rooted to the spot, unable to speak. The two people then walked towards him. Under the dim light of the lanterns outside, the faces of the two people could be seen clearly. One of them was petite and wore the clothes of a manservant, but it could still be seen that she was a woman. She wore a cloak that was so large that it almost didn't fit her body. She also wore a scarf that covered her face. Except for her eyes, everything below her nose was covered. But it made her eyes even more clear, making one think that if the veil was removed, she would also be a beauty. As for the person next to this petite figure, the boy was almost dumbfounded. This person was extremely tall and straight, and wore a beautiful purple robe embroidered with golden cloud patterns. This robe was a little loose, and the belt was black, which made his robe flutter even more. His appearance was even more handsome and beautiful, and when his peach blossom eyes looked over in the night, it felt as if the snow in winter had also bloomed into spring flowers. Could it be that he was an immortal that came down from the heavens? Otherwise, why would his every move be so elegant and beautiful that one could not take their eyes off him? The petite person rolled her eyes at the purple-robed man, and then asked softly, "What is your name?" The child felt his throat loosen, coughed twice, and suddenly found that he could speak again. The person's voice was that of a woman, very gentle, and the child's mood gradually became less fearful. He nervously said, I am Huai Xing. Huai Xing. The female asked, Is your mother's name Chang Zai Qing? Huai Xing was stunned, and then his eyes turned red. He carefully looked at the woman and asked, Do you know my mother? Do you know where my mother is? I haven't seen her for a long time. They said she wouldn't come back. Someone brought us here, saying that we could see mother, but mother is not here. Shen Miao sighed in her heart. This child was about the same age as Su Ming Lang 2 years ago, but at that time Su Ming Lang was a naive glutinous rice ball and this child was much more pitiful. When Chang Zhao Qing abandoned her husband and son, it was because her husband drank and gambled all day and could no longer live. But before she left, she did not think about how hard it would be for her young son to live with such an irresponsible father. Thus Zhang Zai Qing was not worthy of sympathy nor was she worthy of forgiveness, because a mother who was this cruel was not worthy to be called a mother. Do not be afraid. Shen Miao took out a handkerchief and wiped the child's tears. Huai Xing was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. This female's eyes were very beautiful and one thought that her looks were not bad. Even though she was wearing a manservant's clothes, her pair of hands were fair and tender. Huai Xing knew that this kind of hands were different from their hands that were full of calluses. One look and one could tell that she came from a wealthy family. This female must be very wealthy and for such a noble person to wipe the tears of a lowly commoner like him. Even his own mother did not treat him so gently. Huai Xing was somewhat in a daze looking at it. A light cough sounded and it was the purple-robed male who was standing beside Shen Miao. He glanced at Huai Xing and coldly said, Go in. Huai Xing's entire body turned cold from that glance. He did not know why, but this extremely beautiful male did not do anything and just gave him a faint glance, but it would also make one feel scared. He regained his senses with a quiver and saw the female in front taking back her handkerchief with a gentle gaze. Shen Miao was only thinking of her own Fu Ming and Wan Yu. Fu Ming and Wan Yu had a father like Fu Xiu Yi, so how was it not hard? Even though she did not escape, she was also powerless to change the ending of her children, and was no better than Zhang Zai Qing. Suppressing the complex emotions in her heart, she said, Huai Xing, bring us to see your father. Chapter 662. Huai Xing opened the door to the room, and upon entering, there was a strong smell of alcohol. Shen Miao could not help but frown even though she was wearing a veil. Seeing Shen Miao frowning, Huai Xing seemed to be somewhat embarrassed. He jogged over and took out a diesel lamp from the other side and found a match to light it up. The light flickered as it lit up the room a little brighter. One saw a middle-aged man lying on the bed. This man was very thin and weak, and even his skin was waxy yellow. At the moment he was snoring. Huai Xing looked anxiously at the two people in front of him, and the female said, "Wake him up." Huai Xing nodded his head and walked to the man's side before gently shaking the man's arm and softly said, "Father, father, someone is coming." That man did not have any reaction at first and seemed to be annoyed by Huai Xing's shaking. He subconsciously gave a slap and scolded, "Why are you howling in the middle of the night?" Huai Xing instinctively closed his eyes, but before that slap landed, he carefully opened his eyes and saw his father's fearful gaze. He followed his father's gaze and looked over. That beautiful youth who had been looking coldly and indifferently had unknowingly arrived in front of him, and his slender hand was strangling the man's throat. Immortal, immortal. Huai Xing panicked and was both afraid and worried, but at the end he resisted the fear and said, "My father did not mean to offend you. I beg you to spare his life." Shen Miao swept a glance at the man who was so scared that he instantly lost all his sleepiness before speaking calmly, "Let him go." Xie Jingxing then released his hand. Huai Xing was somewhat afraid. His father knelt on the ground and looked at the two people in front of him. His body could not stop trembling, and most likely he instinctively felt the dangerous atmosphere of the other party, especially that beautiful-looking man. Shen Miao opened her mouth. "You are Tianli." Tianli nodded his head and said, "This one is." Shen Miao swept a glance at Tianli. It was rumored that in the Lu province, Tianli was also a handsome scholar and overflowing with talent, thus he was able to capture Zhang Ziqing's heart, and the two of them became husband and wife. It was just that after failing in the imperial examinations, she gradually developed a sense of self-loathing and simply loitered around the gambling dens and restaurants, drinking and gambling. Zhang Ziqing hated these kind of days, thus she left home. Looking at Tianli's appearance, one could slightly understand why Zhang Ziqing would leave home. Tianli no longer had any of the elegant demeanor he once had. The person in front of him was clearly a frustrated and downtrodden man. "Zhang Ziqing is your wife?" Shen Miao asked. Hearing that, Tianli's body trembled and he raised his head to look at Shen Miao. Even if he tried his best to conceal it, Shen Miao could still see the anger and humiliation in his eyes. "No need to worry. I am not Zhang Ziqing's friend, so if you have any thoughts, just say it," Shen Miao said. Tianli looked at Shen Miao seriously, as if he was confirming if what Shen Miao said was true or not. Shen Miao looked face to face with him, and after a long while, Tianli then spat on the ground. "That cheap woman ran away with my money. Shameless." Huai Xing shrank a little and there was some sadness in his eyes. Shen Miao's gaze landed on Huai Xing and said, "Huai Xing, go to the courtyard. I have some words to speak with your father." Huai Xing looked at Shen Miao and then looked at Tianli. In the end, he did not say anything and silently took a blanket and went out. After Huai Xing went out, Shen Miao then let Tianli clearly explain the ins and outs of the matter. It was similar to what the people that Shen Miao sent to inquire about. Zhang Ziqing's husband was originally Tianli. When Tianli and Zhang Ziqing got married, it was considered a much-told story. Zhang Ziqing was a talented female in the Lu province, and Tianli was also a talented scholar. Tianli's family also had a few shops, and even though it was not considered as a wealthy family, it could be considered as a small wealthy family. Chapter 663. It was just that later on the Tian family's business was challenged by others and their shops were mortgaged. The Tian family's husband and wife could not take the blow and passed away one after another. Tianli was also affected by this and failed in the imperial examinations that year. At that time Zhang Ziqing was already pregnant and gave birth to Huaixing, thus there were more places that needed money. The poor couple had 100 sorrows and both of them quarreled incessantly. Tianli loved to drink and gamble and Zhang Ziqing despised that this was not the life she wanted to live. Thus one day she sold the last remaining land deed in the house for money and ran away. Tianli also let people search but no one could find Zhang Ziqing's whereabouts. Thinking about it, Tianli did not know about the friendship between Changhu and old General Shin, thus he did not know that Zhang Ziqing came to the Ding capital. Tianli was still gnashing his teeth when he talked about Zhang Ziqing, this poisonous woman. That land deed was left for Huaixing to marry when he grows up, but she even wanted to sell it away. She does not even have Huaixing in her heart. She is just a slut. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Xie Jingxing was standing at the other side and looking out of the window, as if he did not have any interest in Tianli's words. However, he was just casually standing there and one was unable to ignore that chilling aura. At the end, Tianli asked, "Someone said that by bringing both of us here, one would be able to see that woman. This young lady, the person who brought us to the Ding capital. Is it you?" Tianli could tell with one glance that the identity of these two people in front of him was not ordinary, especially that male. How would an ordinary person have such an attitude? Moreover, to break into a private residence in the middle of the night and be so arrogant, ordinary people would not have this kind of guts. "It is me." Shen Miao said, "I know where Zhang Ziqing is." Tianli was startled for a moment and when he opened his mouth again, his voice was somewhat trembling as he asked, "She? Where is she?" Shen Miao frowned slightly. In Tianli's voice, other than anger, there was a trace of longing. Perhaps it was because Zhang Ziqing had been a married couple with him for many years, or perhaps it was because Zhang Ziqing was after all Huaixing's mother, but this Tianli was not as powerful as what he said and had a little softness towards Zhang Ziqing. This was not something that Shen Miao was happy to see. She said, "Zhang Ziqing is currently in the formidable Great General Shen residence in the Ding capital and has become the concubine of the third master of the Shen residence, Shen Wan. Now she is pregnant and Shen Wan treats her very well and dotes on her. One think that not long later she will give birth to Shen Wan's son. There are no other children in Shen Wan residence and once the child is born, perhaps Zhang Ziqing will be promoted to the official position. Even if she is not, that child will live a life of luxury and glory." Tianli's expression became extremely interesting. It was like the anger of being cuckolded, humiliation and unwillingness, all mixed together in a complicated mess. That little bit of softness in his heart also vanished after Shen Miao's words. The children that Zhang Ziqing gave birth to would be able to live a life of luxury, but looking at Huaixing, even the title deed for his future wife was sold and nothing was left. Many years later, the two children that crawled out from Zhang Ziqing's womb would have thousands of different lives, like clouds and mud. What people were most afraid of was comparison and Tianli's heart would not be reconciled no matter what. Shen Miao smiled gently, not only that, third master Shen even divorced his wife for Zhang Ziqing and went against his wife in court. One think that he really dotes on Zhang Ziqing. Now the original third Shen Furen has become a rat that everyone wants to beat up. It is really pitiful. Tianli sneered, "This third master Shen also has no brains." Toward Shen Wan, Tianli did not have any good impression as the hatred of stealing one's wife was absolutely irreconcilable. Moreover, as a poor person, one would always have enmity towards the rich and powerful. Especially when Zhang Ziqing often showed that she yearned for wealth in front of Tianli, Tianli was even more resentful towards Shen Wan. Chapter 664. To tell the truth, I was entrusted by Third Shenfuren. Shen Miao said. Third Shenfuren was forced by Third Shen Master and Sang Zai Qing to a dead end, but now there is no way at all. Third Shenfuren is planning to put up a life and death struggle, and to make Third Shen Master and Sang Zai Qing uncomfortable, thus she found you. Me? Tianli looked at Shen Miao and gradually realized something in his heart. Noble person's meaning is, explain to Third Shen Master at an appropriate time that Sang Zai Qing is your wife. Let Third Shen Master end this mistake as soon as possible. Tianli said. Shen Miao did not give Tianli any time to hesitate and said, could it be that you are willing to see your wife grow old together with others? You still have feelings for her and want to let her live. Did she even consider half a bit for you? If she still has a conscience in her heart, not to mention yourself, she would be reluctant to part with Huaixing. But the truth is that she would even take away the last bit of savings that she left for Huaixing. Sang Zai Qing only has herself in her heart and she never put you father and son in her heart. Encountering such injustice and still want to repay evil with good. Tianli, could it be that your Tian family are all disciples of Bodhisattva and are all merciful and indiscriminate? These words were very impolite and the corner of Xie Jingxing's lips rose slightly when he heard it and he looked at Shen Miao meaningfully. Tianli's face flushed red when he heard it but he did not dare and could not refute Shen Miao's words. The most important thing is why should Huaixing live in such hardships and hardship, but Sang Zai Qing and Shen Wan's son can be free and unfettered. If one day Huaixing met this younger brother of a different father, at that time the younger brother would be a person and Huaixing would only be able to serve him like a servant. Sang Zai Qing would only recognize the younger brother and not him, so what would Huaixing think? Tianli, think about it carefully. Are you really willing? Shen Miao's words always carried a hint of bewitchment, making one unconsciously think along with her words. And what she said was obviously what Tianli was most concerned about. No matter how bad Tianli was, and even if he was very rude to Huaixing, he still had a little more conscience than Sang Zai Qing, else he would not be a gambling addict, but still left the last piece of land for Huaixing to marry. Huaixing said, benefactor, I know that I am unwilling, but she is Huaixing's mother after all. I just want to get her back. If she is beaten to death, Huaixing will also be sad. Do not let Huaixing know of this matter. Shen Miao said, after the matter is done, Third Shenfuren will pay you father and son a large sum of money. This amount of silver is much more than the original title deed. With this amount of silver, you can run as far as you want. Start a new life in a place where no one knows you. Without Sang Zai Qing, Huaixing still has you as his father. Treat Huaixing well and Huaixing might not be worse off than now. There were two things in this world that could not be held back, the water that had been spilled, and the people that had walked out. Sang Zai Qing had taken the initiative to walk out of your life, and now she is living a good life, so how are you going to chase her back? Because of your sincerity, or because of Huaixing and her mother's concern? Do you think that this is possible? Tianli painfully closed his eyes. What Shen Miao said was not wrong. Sang Zai Qing was living so well now, and there was really no reason to go back to that unbearable life. If she really cared about him, and cared about the mother-son relationship with Huaixing, then she would not have sold the title deed and escaped. The female wearing a veil in front was still speaking calmly, every person for themselves, the heavens and earth will destroy them. She was heartless first, so why do you need to talk about righteousness? Right now there is a chance to change your life. If you miss it once, there would not be a second time. No matter if you are stepping on Sang Zai Qing's life to move forward, you are not wrong. Because this is what Sang Zai Qing owes you father and son. Will you do it or not? Chapter 665. Following Shen Miao's words, many things flashed past Tian Li's eyes. Chang Zaiqing's disgusted eyes, the neighbors pointing at him after he escaped, Wai Xing always sitting alone in the corner, not knowing what he was thinking, and forever wearing tattered clothes. If one day he could change his life, and be like those well-off rich families to give Wai Xing a good life. Tian Li suddenly raised his head and in an instant made up his mind, "Do. I promise to listen to all your instructions, but you must give me enough money so that both of us father and son can leave this place without worrying about food and clothing." Shen Miao raised her eyebrows. Sometimes rumors were not credible and it was said that Tian Li was like a scoundrel. One did not think that it would be so simple today. Tian Li was not difficult to deal with, perhaps it was because of Wai Xing. Even though this man did not have any ability and his temperament was not good, but at the end he still had a conscience. "The money will be given to you." The one who spoke was Xie Jingxing. He stood in the shadows and leaned against the door as he spoke lazily, "Do not have any other ideas, otherwise." Tian Li suddenly trembled and quickly lowered his head as he spoke in fear, "This lowly one does not dare." One did not know why, but when facing this man, it made him feel an indescribable fear. Even from the beginning till now, the one who spoke was a masked female, but the purple-clad male's aura was pervasive in the narrow room. Shen Miao glanced at Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing was rather useful. If one were to threaten someone, there was no need to say any harsh words and just directly bring Xie Jingxing over to that side and the other party would wilt first. When Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao both left the room, Wai Xing came over and looked at Shen Miao before asking timidly, "Are you able to find mother?" Shen Miao looked at Wai Xing and said, "Sleep early." She then took the lead and walked out. Her steps were after all a little hurried and Xie Jingxing followed. After leaving the alley in the east of the city, they reached the streets outside. Xie Jingxing glanced at Shen Miao's expression and said, "You feel sorry for that child. One must continue to do apologies." Shen Miao said, "I am also a selfish person. You did not do anything wrong." Xie Jingxing casually said, "You are not a disciple of Bodhisattva." He used the words that Shen Miao said to Tian Li just now to comfort Shen Miao. Shen Miao looked at him and said, "You are." Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "You accompanied me out in the middle of the night and helped me threaten Tian Li to prevent future troubles. You are a disciple of Bodhisattva. Otherwise, why would you be so kind?" Xie Jingxing chuckled, "You don't seem to appreciate it at all." Shen Miao's lips slowly curled up. His relationship with Xie Jingxing had unknowingly gradually changed. There was no need to be tit for tat as the other party was very intelligent and was even more magnanimous. It seemed that there were many things that he did not have to do alone, which made it easier for him. For example, at this very moment, on the deserted snowy street, they walked side by side as if they were taking a stroll. She seemed to still be that Empress Xin in her bones, but also seemed to have something that she did not have in the past. "Zhang Zaiqing's matter, do you need my help?" Xie Jingxing said lazily, "If you beg me, I can consider it. Then there is no need for your Highness Prince Rui to worry." Shen Miao smiled, "Lest there be any side issues." "You have a good idea again." Xie Jingxing glanced at her and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Sometimes feel that when would there be a difficult problem that you are unable to solve, perhaps you will also beg me." "Most likely there is no such thing," Shen Miao answered. Chapter 666. Regret. Xie Jingxing's words were filled with regret. Shen Miao smiled. There were new things happening in the Ding capital every day, but the new things that happened every day would quickly cover up the new things that happened a few days ago. For example, the lawsuit between the Shen and Qin family a few days ago. Everyone treated it as a joke, and after seeing it, they would forget about it. As for the Shen residents, it was the same. The servants still did what they needed to do, and the only difference was that Qiu Shui Yuan had changed to a new master, and the new master had gained Shen Wan's favor, almost catching up to third Shen Foreign who had just entered the household. Compared to Chen Roqiu, Zhang Ziqing was better at building relationships with the surrounding people. Most likely it was because she did not have Chen Roqiu's air of self-righteousness. She was hearty and delicate, and the way she treated others made others feel comfortable. Not only did Shen Wan like her, even Shen Gui and old Shen Foreign also felt that she was not bad and felt that it was a wise decision for Shen Wan to divorce Chen Roqiu. Shen Wan treated Zhang Ziqing well, and old Shen Foreign specially found an eminent monk to take a look, saying that the child in Zhang Ziqing's stomach was definitely a male. Old Shen Foreign's last bit of nitpicking towards Zhang Ziqing's birth was gone. The most urgent matter in the Shen residence was to quickly add a male child, otherwise outsiders would laugh at the Shen residence for having no descendants. Shen Wan was always smiling every day. Zhang Ziqing gave him advice and was able to properly manage the matters in the residence, as if she was very familiar with it. He was happy to be relaxed. To be able to write poetry and also manage the family business, there was no male that would not like such a virtuous wife. On this day, Zhang Ziqing and Shen Wan were talking in the courtyard. Zhang Ziqing was wrapped in a thick fur coat, and there was a brazier by her feet and a heater in her hands. Because he was afraid that she would catch a cold, Shen Wan let the surrounding maids do their best to serve her. Zhang Ziqing said, "Master is somewhat free today." Shen Wan pulled her hand to his and smiled, "Not only today. These days there are no matters in court and one can accompany you and the child more." "That is really good." Zhang Ziqing smiled, "The child can also get closer to father." These words made Shen Wan extremely happy. He hugged Zhang Ziqing in his embrace and sighed, "Now what I hope in my heart is nothing more than for you to give birth to a child, then all these things that I have done would not be in vain." Chen Roqiu seemed to have understood something, and seeing that Shen Wan's brows did not relax, she asked, "Is master still worried about 5th Shen young lady's matter a few days ago? To let Shen Miao marry to Prince Zhou, or to let Shen Miao and Prince Zhou have a relationship, no matter which one it was, until now there was no news at all." It seemed that things weren't going well. Even though Zhang Ziqing did not know why Shen Wan wanted so much, she knew that this matter was definitely related to Shen Wan's career. Shen Wan smiled bitterly and shook his head. These days Shen Xian has been watching Shen Miao very well, and Shen Miao did not even leave the residence, thus one could not find an opportunity. It's like an iron bucket, it's hard to make a move. As he spoke, he seemed to be disappointed. This can't go on. Zhang Ziqing's eyes turned and smiled. What is so difficult about this? If 5th Shen young lady does not go out, then let 5th Shen young lady take the initiative to go out. To tell the truth, if 5th Shen young lady were to go out, General Shen would inevitably let her bring a group of guards. General Shen is after all from the military, and the people around him are all experts. If one really wanted to make a move, one might not succeed in one shot. It is better to let 5th Shen young lady take the initiative to go out and moreover sneak out so that General Shen would not find out. This way it would be much easier. Shen Wan's eyes flashed, and after thinking for a moment, he still shook his head. Shen Miao usually does not have any secrets, so it would be difficult to coax her out. Even Shen Miao had a good relationship with a young lady called Feng and Ning, and these days she was staying in the Feng residence, and if Shen Miao were to come out in Feng and Ning's name, Shen Miao would definitely be alert. Chapter 667. Young lady, no matter how calm she usually is, she is still timid, and there will be repercussions in her heart. Zhang Ziqing however smiled gently. Master might as well take an unconventional approach, for example using 5th Shen young lady's parents or older brother as a raft and say that they are in danger or something. One would be flustered, and no matter how calm Shin young lady usually is, when it concerns one's own blood relatives, one think that one would panic. Master might as well make use of this opportunity. When Shinwan heard that, he first thought about it carefully before holding Zhang Ziqing's hands tightly. Even though there are some loopholes, it is still a good idea. Once it is perfected in detail, perhaps it could really be put to use. He looked at Zhang Ziqing with some excitement and did not hide the appreciation in his eyes. You always give me surprises. Zhang Ziqing lowered her head slightly and smiled. Master is really joking. Now that one is following Master, one would do one's best to think for Master. Even though this matter is not open and aboveboard, but Ziqing also know that there is no father and son in court, and Ziqing would put Master first. Actually, the matter of scheming against Shin Miao was considered a vicious plan if it was set out. Even though Shinwan was very appreciative of Zhang Ziqing's ingenious plan for him, but in the future when he thought about it, he would inevitably feel that Zhang Ziqing was ruthless. Zhang Ziqing took the lead to say it out herself. First she said that there was no father and son in court, and then she put Shinwan first in everything. Not only did it not make Shinwan feel bad, it made Shinwan appreciate Zhang Ziqing even more. He felt that she was broad-minded, and it was rare for her to think of him wholeheartedly. She was a rare female. Therefore Shinwan looked at Zhang Ziqing affectionately. With such a beauty, what more can one ask for? Zhang Ziqing also meekly said, it is Ziqing's fortune to meet Master. Ziqing dare not forget Master's good treatment of Ziqing. The lower she sat, the more Shinwan doted on her, but did not see the flash of pride in Zhang Ziqing's eyes. In Zhang Ziqing's eyes, any man or any feelings were just passing clouds. Only those who had truly experienced poverty would know the value of wealth. She wanted to hold on to Shinwan tightly, not because of Shinwan himself, but because Shinwan could bring her a life without worrying about food and clothing. Zhang Ziqing was different from Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu still loved Shinwan in her heart, so Chen Roqiu would lose her mind because of Shinwan's actions. What Zhang Ziqing loved was the wealth of the Shin residents and the identity of an official's foreign, thus she was more clear-headed about what she had to do. For a man like Shinwan and a person like Chen Roqiu who was an exquisite person, it was inevitable that they would end up like this. Zhang Ziqing knew in her heart that just by relying on poetry and songs, it was not enough to capture this man's heart. She had to display her talents and make Shinwan feel that she was useful to him. Only then would Shinwan never give up on her. Zhang Ziqing did very well. Shinwan accompanied Zhang Ziqing for a while before he got up and left. He still had some official business to attend to, so he seriously instructed Zhang Ziqing's servants before leaving with his servants. When he returned to his study, his personal manservant slowly walked over with a letter and said, "Master, the gatekeeper said that someone handed a letter to you, but I don't know who sent it." Shinwan took the letter and saw that the top of the envelope was also empty. It was obvious that the sender was afraid that others would notice the signature. As officials in court, they would occasionally have some confidential letters, thus Shinwan did not dare to delay and quickly opened the letter. The first line of words that opened the letter made Shinwan's entire person freeze on the spot. That line of words said, "Third Shin Master, do you know that your favored concubine is a used shoe?" Shinwan almost lost his balance. He supported himself with one hand on the table and calmed himself down. Only then did he quickly continue to read the letter. The letter was written very simply, but the contents of the letter were not simple at all. That letter said that Zhang Ziqing had already married before in the Lu province and had a son. Now that she was in the Shin residence and had become Shinwan's concubine, the most important thing was that at this time, Zhang Ziqing had not separated from her original husband. If it was more serious, Shinwan could even say that he had seized another's wife and could be sued in court. Shinwan originally did not believe it and looked at the letter with some disdain. He even thought that this letter would be the evidence of Chen Rochio's provocation. But when he saw the last line of words, his body trembled and he suddenly froze. Zhang Ziqing's private place had a small red mole. This was an ironclad fact. Chapter 668. A normal person would not be able to see the little red mole on Zhang Ziqing's private parts. But what kind of person was Shenwan? If he would easily believe this sentence without any evidence, then he would not be an official who had been in the court for so many years. He swept a glance at the letter and it said that this father and son pair had already entered the Ding capital and were staying in a private residence in the eastern part of the city. There was even a specific address at the top. Shenwan quickly tore the letter into shreds and said to the servant beside him, "Prepare the carriage." Shenwan did not believe a strange letter, but he was unable to trust Zhang Ziqing without reservation. It would be better to see it with his own eyes. When the horse carriage reached the residence in the eastern part of the city, Shenwan did not get off the carriage himself but hid inside and let his servant knock on the door. The one who opened the door was an 8 or 9-year-old boy. Because this boy's figure was too thin and weak, his gaze lacked the innocence of a child and was more mature, looking like a youth. When Shenwan saw that boy's face clearly, he sucked in a breath of cold air. In that instant, Shenwan knew that the words in the letter were true. There was no other reason but that this boy was just too similar to Zhang Ziqing. Even the charm between the brows was extremely similar, but compared to Zhang Ziqing's open and candid appearance, this boy appeared to be much more inferior and timid. But no matter what, the appearance was 100% similar. The Zhang family did not have any other heirs, thus it was impossible for him to be Zhang Ziqing's younger brother. Shenwan's personal servant jumped in shock from this boy's appearance, but still followed Shenwan's instructions and asked, "Little brother, do you know where Zhang Ziqing is?" That boy looked at him warily and asked, "Why are you looking for my mother?" Shenwan closed his eyes. There was no doubt that what the letter said was the truth. Zhang Ziqing indeed had a husband and son in the Lu province. One just did not know why it was so well concealed. The servant said a few perfunctory words to that boy and returned to Shenwan's side to report. He carefully looked at Shenwan and asked, "Master, investigate." Shenwan panted, "Send people to the Lu province to investigate. You must investigate clearly what kind of background Zhang Ziqing has." The reason why Shenwan appreciated Zhang Ziqing was because Zhang Ziqing was gentle, frank and talented, moreover she was currently pregnant with his child. But if Shui Zhang Ziqing really had a husband and son in Lu province, then all of this would become a joke. He was still complacent about raising other people's wife, but since Zhang Ziqing had abandoned her husband and son, she was definitely not as gentle as she looked on the surface. Shenwan was also very picky in certain aspects. On one hand, he hoped that his wife could take care of worldly affairs in an orderly manner. On the other hand, he hoped that she could maintain the aura of an otherworldly fairy. And everything that happened today made Zhang Ziqing instantly change into another person in his eyes, making Shenwan feel extremely disgusted. In the next few days, Shenwan seemed to be very busy. Every day he would be outside and even when he returned to the Shen residence, he would head into the study so Zhang Ziqing was not able to see him. Occasionally, she would come over to deliver pastries to Shenwan, but Shenwan's behavior was not as intimate as before. Initially Shenwan's attitude made Zhang Ziqing somewhat uneasy, but Shenwan's personal servant told Zhang Ziqing that Shenwan had taken up an errand these few days. He was very busy, thus he had no time to care about other things. Zhang Ziqing then felt relieved. However, the truth was that Shenwan finally received a letter from the Lu province. In the letter that was sent back from the Lu province, it was indeed no different from the letter that was sent by the stranger. Zhang Ziqing originally had a husband and it was considered a story of a generation in the Lu province. After Shenwan finished reading the letter, he was so angry that he almost flipped the table. He had taken in a noble concubine and it was someone else's wife, and now that the other party's husband and son had found their way to the Ding capital, once it was discovered, one feared that he would become a joke in the entire Ding capital. Moreover, those imperial censors would not let go of this opportunity to censure him.